Okay, 3, 2, 1, and we're rolling. So,
Yeah.
welcome, Terrance. Thank you for coming on the Interstice. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Happy to be here, man. It's an honor to be on this show. I watched you when I was living in Cleveland, Ohio, back in America. When I was like looking to go to Japan, I used to watch all your earlier videos when you were an English teacher, and I think you were here a couple of years before I decided to move here. So, yeah, man, you are a huge wealth of information. When I first got here in 2017.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's always like one of the best things that I hope to hear, and it is kind of crazy over the years. Now it's there's been a few people like that where like
Yeah.
from years like pride they had like an interest, then they
Uh,
went through the whole application, and then now they've been living here for a couple of years and getting to meet them and stuff. It's really cool. So that's probably a good place to start. I was looking through your bio,
yeah.
the background and like software design you were doing. Was it software or website design?
So it is a nuance thing. So when I was living in Cleveland, I was doing web design. I wouldn't exactly call that software engineering because I didn't have the programming chops yet. You'd
Okay.
be surprised at how far you can get with building websites without necessarily knowing the programmatic side. I mean, I was pretty good with HTML and CSS, but that's not programming. So I was just building websites for like different clients and stuff. Back in my hometown, earned a couple of dollars and decided to move to Japan.
That's awesome. So, I mean, we have to ask the inevitable question there as well. What is the interest in Japan? Where did that come from?
It's quite interesting because, the longer I stay here, the more I forget what's my original reason why I came here. It's kind of lost on me. I got to be quite honest. But if I had to think about it, because I used to live in Hong Kong, I was studying abroad. I was 20 years old. My last semester of school, I took a trip to Tokyo. I thought it was like the dopest place I ever been to. And then I came back home to Cleveland, Ohio. So it's a vast difference in Tokyo and Hong Kong. So I'm like, okay, I have this traveler's bug, and I need to like come back. So I had like this desire. I wanted to go to Hong Kong, but Japan always had a warm place for my childhood because I used to play video games, watch anime, and it's the land of that. So I put my mind to it, and I'm like, it doesn't matter how I get here. It doesn't matter what I do. I want to come here, and I started Googling teaching English because the bar is incredibly low. So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it didn't take long for a company to call me back, and then literally, like 8 months later,
Hmm.
I had my bags packed, and I arrived in Fukuoka.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, you had the website. You were doing the website design. You saw it as an easy way to get into the country with teaching. But I mean, you've kind of how long have you been in Japan?
Almost 4 years. It'd be 4 years this March.
Okay, but then I feel like for a lot of people, it is this like it's almost like getting your break in showbiz or something, being able to get outside of teaching, where
For
you've
sure.
done that pretty fast, right? Because now you're working. Is it now web design or is it actually programming now?
This is definitely programming. This is
Okay.
yeah, yeah. This isn't and that's the thing. Like so many people ask like, yeah, hey, how do I get out of teaching? And it's there's really no set path, man. It's just like something that you just kind of have to figure out on your own and just have the consistency. So I arrived in Fukuoka. My company Interact sent me to Kochi. And when I was in Kochi, I was just a regular English teacher teaching, hanging out, drinking, having fun with friends. And,
Mhm.
I had adjacent skills, which was the web design. So I knew HTML and CSS, and I knew that I don't want to be an English teacher because at least at this capacity, if you're working at a university, if you're working directly with the schools, if you have a full-time position, it is a career. If you are AOT, it is not a career. You're in a sub-level role, and it's a dead-end job, to be quite frank. So after school, especially during that long summer break, I just used it for productive activities. Like I started taking online classes like many people, but I actually stuck with it, and I stuck with it for a really long time. I did 100-day challenges. 100-day challenges turned to 200-day challenges, and I programmed and programmed every single day. And I mean, I was failing at it, but I kept failing forward. And then
I like that.
eventually,
Yeah.
yeah, you see, like, so eventually I got into a position where I'm like, okay, this is all or nothing for me. So I remember this story. It was in September of like 2018. I'm like, I don't want to renew this contract. I don't want to keep doing this. I think I want to go home by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking for jobs in Hong Kong and as a web designer. But no one actually really took me seriously because part of the reason I don't live in Hong Kong and I'm also an English teacher. So you're thinking like, well, why are you trying to switch careers again? So no one actually took me serious for like a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Then this is gonna be a long answer. So then I started applying for jobs in China to teach English. I figured, hey, if I can't, I don't want to do it in Japan because the money is low, but the money is high in China and I have more time off, so I can get a master's degree while I teach English in China. But due to like various things that we can choose to talk about, I didn't get the job. And I was like a week away from like just giving up, like for real. Like I was gonna call my mom and be like, yo, I'm gonna buy a plane ticket. I'm just gonna come home and just figure things out. And then I applied for that job. I applied for one more job. I'm like, you know what? Let me check LinkedIn. And I found this job in Tokyo out in Roppongi for a front end developer role. And I didn't meet the qualifications, to be quite frank. I met
But you
like,
still applied?
yeah, I met 3 out of 7 of them. But I have like this tenacity where I'm like, if I just get on the phone with these guys, I'm going to sell myself. And so we did a Zoom call. It wasn't Zoom back in the day. What was it? Skype.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
again, Skype or Google Hangouts. So we did one of those calls. I think I impressed them. They flew me out. They flew me out for like an actual coding interview, which I was like, I'm gonna do this. And I took the coding interview and I didn't finish. They had no reason to like take me seriously, but they liked me anyway because I did the interview.
Okay.
And they, at 23 years old, they took a chance on me. And then they gave me the job. Next thing you know, like the timeline went from September to October to like early November, and I'm packing my bags. I'm leaving the island of Shikoku, and I flew to Tokyo, and I started a position as a front-end developer. I worked for that company for about a year and a half. Realized that wasn't necessary. I feel like I kind of outgrew the role because I kept working really hard, and I guess they wanted me to be more of a. They wanted to give me like the lower priority task, but I kind of want something a little bit more for myself. So I started looking for jobs at startup companies. It's something I can play a direct role in and shaping the product. So I quit that job and now I'm working at a startup company.
Okay.
Hope that's not a long answer.
No, not at all. I mean, that's and it kind of speaks to once you've like kicked open that door, you already, well, I mean, you went through a couple of things there, which I think a lot of people could take great value from, is this idea that it doesn't necessarily matter what direction, but that you should choose one. It's when you expect kind of like manna from heaven and you think, oh, I'll get promoted or accumulate experience, that an ALT job will stop being that and suddenly I'll be making 400K a month or something. But when you said that you were like doing these 100-day challenges and stuff, was this also, not obviously totally self-educated because you're using resources, but like what resources were you using to educate yourself for the programming?
I use Treehouse because teamtreehouse.com, I think is the website. Like it has like a track like where like you're gonna learn this first and then that first, because sometimes when you're learning online, like it could be a little bit sporadic. You don't know what should you learn first, what should come first, second, and third, and that can really knock people off the track. Now, this isn't for everybody. I met a lot of people in Tokyo who just did programming boot camps, to be quite frank, and there's a couple of good ones here in Tokyo. But if you have the capacity to self-learn and have like discipline, like I do recommend you use the combination of something like Treehouse, but also buy Udemy courses for very specific courses, and as well as YouTube if you have like a very particular thing that you found on there that you want to recreate. So these in these 100-day challenges, like it was really just self-led. Like it's not like it's up to yourself. You're accountable to yourself. So my goal was just to program every single day for an hour, like just and sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours on weekends, just every single day. And I did it. Like that was the priority. And you have to like almost treat like brushing your teeth. Like I want to go out drinking, but if it gets in the way of this, I can't go out drinking. So I am going to do this because, I don't have a computer science background. I took a programming class, and this is, I hope my boss don't hear this, but I took a programming class once in college and I got a D in it. So I had like, it threw me away from programming. I was learning Java. This is like 7 years ago. And I did horrible in it. And really what it was, looking back on it, it was a lack of discipline. And also I just didn't like learn well inside the college environment. So doing it by myself where I can like control the experience and control what teacher I learned from, it changed everything. So yeah.
That's it's so cool. It's like a topic I'm really interested in now, which is basically like self education. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's particularly applicable when it comes to fields like IT and programming, but it should, like all those sources that you just talked about, I mean, some of which can be free, right? Like if you go on
Yeah.
YouTube, that can be free. I'm not sure about Udemy. Do they have free courses, or is it like pay by course, or
It's
what's?
it's 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 paid by, and there's constant sales. If you buy a Udemy
Okay.
course at full price, you're doing something wrong. If you gotta always
Okay.
catch the $10 sales.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just how these companies, obviously, I mean, another thing that's like really important that people could mine from this, that when you look at the requirements on a job application, that of
Yeah.
course they're important. You can't go in there with nothing,
Yeah.
but to be discouraged if you see two or three, or I mean, you said you met three of the seven,
Yeah, 3 of the 7. 3. Yeah.
and then to still knock on that door anyways is massive. And it's just incredible to me how self-directed and that people want to see. I guess it's like, and you even said it when you went in, you did like the programming interview where I guess they
Yeah.
essentially get you to do something where
Yeah.
it's just about showing capability. You know,
Yeah.
it is less and less and less that piece of overpriced paper that people are getting that do nothing for them, where this guy who's done what you did, which
Yeah.
is like self-directed, could just as easily get the position, which I think is actually, I think it's a better system, because universities and degrees so much end up being like an old boys club.
Hmm.
Like it's just that you got into this place. It's not actually based on the merit of your skills,
Hmm.
which we're moving away from, which is very cool. I know this is jumping around a bit, but I also wanted to talk about. I mean, you having the experience you do, also as a DJ, not necessarily as like that was
Yeah.
your that was your ultimate life direction, but like you went to Kochi, right? That was the city.
Yeah. Yeah. Kochi Shi.
Was Kochishi, is it in the north? Is it more northern?
Nah, it's by the
No.
ocean. It's
Oh.
it's down. It's
Oh, it's
south.
down. It's
Yeah.
on, is it okay, I did look this up. Is it on its own island? Or is
It's
it
on Shikoku Island. It's that island that no
okay.
one knows about, but it's pretty big, but somehow everyone overlooks.
Okay. So like what was, yeah, like talk a little. You went there, you got in with the local culture, and then you found yourself ending up a DJ. How did that all go down?
That's a fun. That was such a fun time in my life. That felt like an extended college, to be quite honest with you, because so what happened was, I moved to Kochi. I didn't really know anybody. I started going out by myself. Met some American friends. Met some American people at a bar. They soon became my friends. We started like hanging out some more. We started going out to like the only two clubs. There was like two clubs in Kochi. One was called Love Jamaica. The other one was called Outer. I just showed up like every 2 weeks, just kicking it, just drinking it. It's not really much you can really do in Kochi, so we were just
Sure.
chilling. And like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I built up a slow rapport with the outer owner. And
Hmm.
he liked me because I always just bring my friends by, and like I used to always bring girls and stuff like that. So I'm just
Okay.
like I was giving him business, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
me and him
yeah.
just build up a rapport because I liked it. I wanted to like just vent after a long week of teaching. So after a while, I kept toying with the idea like I kind of want to DJ. One day we threw this party, and I had more of a assisted hand in like throwing the party because I was able to pick the playlist, and I was like, this is dope. And
Okay,
I think I
cool.
walked up to him that day. I was like, "Yeah, you should teach me how to DJ." And he speaks like broken English,
Okay.
and he was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm serious. Like, I'm not joking. Like, I want to DJ." And he was like, "Okay, well, come Friday and come every Friday." So, I came every Friday. He has this like expensive setup, huge speakers and things like that. And it was like, Fridays is like where the club is not really a club; it's a bar because people don't really go out on Fridays to like party. And he was teaching me how to DJ. Like, so I started playing music, and of course, I was absolutely terrible at it. Like timing was off, everything was just bad. Like it was
Mm.
just really bad. And I did that for like a solid 2 months before my friends really saw me play. I had close friends who would stop by and see me just mess up and make mistakes. But I kept practicing. I did my first show, and man, it was like maybe 2018. I think it was 2018, early 2018. I did my first show probably in the springtime, like around March. Could be slightly wrong about that timeline. And then I invited all of my friends and stuff like that. And it was a fairly packed out crowd. I was still pretty bad, but my friends showed support and they rocked out with me. So that was awesome. I started playing hip hop music and stuff. And even after my first show, I just kept consistently just showing up every single Friday. That was my priority at the time. And this is before I had a plan to like even leave coaching. So this was just my thing to keep me busy. And I just got slowly better and better. Then you start putting me on better time slots, more popular time slots over. And like I started to like, meet other DJs, become cool with other DJs. And next thing you know, man, like I'm walking down the street and people will recognize me from the club. They would see like my poster. Like you can check through my earlier parts of Instagram, my earlier parts of my timeline saying posters. That's on IG, but those same posters would be like, around the club and around the city. So people would see my face. And that was so cool, man. I feel like a local celebrity because people would buy me drinks and they see me at different bars and they would come and say hi. So it was a really like surreal experience of me just getting out of my shell and just trying something new in a foreign country.
That's so cool. So has that? I mean, you're in Tokyo now.
Yeah, I'm in Tokyo.
Has that stayed with you? Are you still able to do that at all, or is that something kind of like the guitar behind me put on hold for the time being?
Well, I'm not nearly as anomaly in Tokyo as tons of foreigners, but I put it to the side. I did one show in Tokyo, and then I decided to like gracefully bow out for a bit.
Hmm.
For one, it just felt like a completed chapter. Like if the people who were with me during that time period to see me went from not being the DJ to practicing on the iPad to like, doing shows and more people come. And then like, I did this final show, this goodbye show where we packed out the entire club. And like, he had a wall on the club where all these famous DJs from like Hong Kong, Europe, Tokyo, like big DJs like millions of followers, like just like wrote their name on the wall. And at the very end, I got to put my name up there, like almost like as a badge of honor. And that kind of felt like just a closing of a chapter because my passion wasn't to be a DJ. It was just something that I wanted to do
To
just
do.
as a bucket list thing. But part of the reason why I stopped again is because, when you don't meet the qualifications for a job, you kind of have to make up for it. So like I still kept practicing and doing 100-day challenges and stuff after I got the job. Like I had to get better quickly. So I couldn't like, DJing, it takes so much time just to prep, find songs, mix and practice. So I put that to the side. But I have made an acknowledgement that now I'm in a more comfortable position that 2021, summer 2021, I'm gonna start playing again. I got a couple of friends here. They're gonna help me like, get reintroduced into the scene. I'm gonna try to play next year.
Okay, cool. So that leads into an interesting question. Like, what are your some of your musical influences?
Musical influences. I'm a huge fan of hip hop.
Mm.
I used to rap and do poetry. So yeah, just mostly hip hop. I mean, you might occasionally hear me listen to some like R&B, not occasionally, probably on an everyday basis. Occasionally listen to pop, maybe dance hall. As far as artists go or artists
Hmm.
go, I like the Jay-Z's of the world. I like the J. Cole's, the Kendrick Lamar's, the Drake's. Hell, I even got like a hoodie with Nipsey Hussle.
Okay, okay,
RP Nipsey Hussle. He's a phenomenal influence on me. So yeah, those are some of my influences.
okay. Cool, cool, cool. When you're DJing, and obviously you're it's like DJing is blending these together, right? Like you're
Yeah.
you're crossing these genres together. Um, so you have hip hop. What were some of the other ones that you said there?
Oh, what? So hip hop,
Genres,
and B,
R and B.
dance hall. But so when I DJ, I don't really play too much. I mean, I play what I like, but I don't play what I deeply like because
Okay,
it'll be a little bit too introspective for the club. So
okay, yeah,
like
all right,
that's like I'm aware of what people are into. At least when I was DJing, like I usually stayed around the dance BPMs of like 96 to like 110. Like so I'll play like a lot of dance hall. Like, surprisingly Japanese people like dance hall. Like surprisingly, it is shocking. Like that summery islandy feel, at least in Kochi. I can't
okay,
say what the audience here in Tokyo is like. I mean, Kochi has palm trees, so I can explain everything. Like I was surprised to see palm trees in Japan. So like they really like that islandy, dancey bop to it. So I played a lot of those types of songs, and people really enjoyed it. To my surprise.
So I'm kind of curious. Like, this is a thing I was talking to my friend about today. Um, did you notice as you got into it more, were you listening to music in a different way afterwards? Were you like aware of it in a different way once you were like, you have that personal connection to the creation of it?
Absolutely, absolutely. You feel more hands on with music, although you're not a creator when you're DJing. You're certainly like a facilitator. You're
Okay.
the facilitator, like people's like evening and like the overall environment. So, like I became more aware of songs. I became more aware like, okay, this song is definitely will be good at the club. This song won't be good at the club. When I first started DJing, I'm like, I want to play R&B, but the R&B that I was listening to, I mean, it sounds good in the headphones, but it don't sound great in the club. Like it was like trying to force a triangle into like a square hole. It wasn't like the best idea. So you start through trial and error. You start to see what people like, and you start to add more of that into the playlist. And maybe you might throw a couple of experimental songs to see like, okay, let's see how people react to this. And eventually you start thinking like, okay, this song blends with that song. This song that song blends with this song. Also has software on my computer that tell me the exact BPMs, and I was able
Okay.
to like do some test mixing like when I was at home, just saying like, okay, I have a rough idea that this would blend well with this, that would blend well with that. I'll also listen to other DJs and see what worked for them, because if you don't know what to do, just copy somebody else. So that's what I did. Yeah,
Yeah, that's how to put it. It's like I was thinking of I really like stand up a lot,
yeah,
and one of the interesting things they were talking about is like what a beast it is in terms of live performance. How it's like this. It's almost like between you and the audience. It's a collaboration
yeah,
where you have when you're listening, like you said, sounds good in the headphones, and for a personal experience, one type of music makes some sense. But then as a DJ, you have that relationship the whole evening with your audience.
yeah.
That means that there's sort of you've got this feedback loop there that you're having to create. That dynamic is your concern just as much as the music is, and though
Hmm.
that's what's in concert with each other. That's yeah, that I think that would be incredible. Like anyone who does any sort of audience based performance based thing, I
Yeah,
think you get a special kind of relationship with the crowd, which
yeah,
is it's almost something. I mean, I enjoy as much engagement as you can have on YouTube with videos that you make, and if somebody says that it impacts you, but it's totally different when it's not in the moment. Obviously,
yeah.
this is something that they're taking away and then coming back with a response to. Have you ever something I enjoyed recently, which I thought was really cool? I was like, man, this is just an awesome business model to have. Which maybe you want to check this place out because you're
Okay.
in Tokyo, but it's like hi-fi music bars where it's
Hi-fi
basically
music bars.
yeah, they got like awesome like whatever they've done for sound design or audio equipment,
Uh,
and then you're going to go in, so you're going to have like primo top shelf like great sound quality from the music that you're listening to, and then they will have, I guess it's a DJ in the room because the guy's going to like put on more music, but it's like it's usually slightly more mellow because it's like bar
yeah.
mood or whatever. The place is called that I went to is called Martha Bar. It's in Ibisu, and
Okay.
plays music really eclectic, like cross, like I don't want to say world because I think world has a specific like feeling to the kind of music you expect, but like
Yeah.
from every single country's music, ranging from like the 60s to the 90s, I think, something like
Okay.
that. And it's
Okay.
just,
That's interesting.
if anything, for a date, you go in there, it's like really really chill, incredible sound quality, great atmosphere, kind of funny too with the mood in the place. It's like the one review that my buddy was pointing me to when he said he was looking at it was, he was like, Martha Bar where the customer is not always right, because they actually because the emphasis is on the experience of the music. If anybody talks too loud, they like go up and shush them. Like there's like a real.
Really?
It's one of the places where like it could borderline on being pretentious, but I
Okay.
actually liked that they cared so much that if you come here, it's about experiencing the music, and it's a little more of a selfless thing that you're going in for. But
Okay.
I guess like obviously it's a different atmosphere to like going out to party, but I was like, I hadn't
I
ever
want to,
been to
yeah.
one of those before. Like, have you ever been to like that kind of?
The the closest thing I've been to is also a music bar in Ibisu, but it's nowhere near what you have. Like it's like a vinyl bar. I forgot the name. I think it's called Music Bar actually. And
Okay,
you walk into the bar and it's like vinyl everywhere. Like you can pick a vinyl and have them play it. So it's a
okay,
very curated experience. So you're going out there like with a date or with your homies and you're just like,
yeah,
looking through the shelf, grabbing like a vinyl, like new and old, and they just play it. But I do want to check that out because it's like a pretty unique experience. Like I don't know if I like it, but it sounds like something I would
yeah,
definitely would like to try.
sure,
Like I don't know. I'm not saying I won't, but it's just like
yeah,
it's something that I would definitely like to like experience. It might be really cool, like to take a date out there just to be like, okay, we're not gonna really talk that much. We're gonna talk very loudly. We're just gonna like just have the shared experience together. So
yeah.
I
And it
might
was
try that.
vinyl. It was vinyl. Now that you say it, yeah,
Yeah,
it was like wall to wall vinyl that the guys were
yeah.
going through. Yeah, it was an experience. It
But
was a cool
I
experience.
want to rewind because you mentioned something great. Like there is something about live performances, and I think comedians, DJs, and a lot of people who do live shows, like that feeling that you get, man, you really do feel alive. Like it's a really intimate experience. Like when you're playing music for people, you're kind of largely influencing like what's going to happen to them tonight, or how much fun they're going to have. So those people will like inevitably vote with their feet. So like I mean I didn't have my highs and lows, and I had people walk out, grab a cigarette. I had times I was just playing to like an empty club, and I had times where people were just like super excited. I had times where I played one playlist one night and then the exact same playlist on another night and two different experiences. So like it's a character builder, and you just gotta like just roll with the punches. Honestly, that's the best advice if you're trying to be like a DJ or just do something live. Like don't take your failures too seriously. Just roll with the punches and have fun because you're not gonna make everybody happy, and you're not gonna always be perfect, especially if you're early like me. So like you just try your best, and like that's it. And if you're really bad, just look over towards the better DJ and be like, hey, you want to get on? Like they don't like me.
Oh, that's I guess yeah. That leads to another question. You said they vote with their feet, right? I was wondering, is there anything? Is there like an equivalent to like hecklers that you have for DJs? Has anybody actually actively said the music sucks while you were playing, or
I mean, not that I heard.
okay, all right,
Probably like
yeah,
someone
okay,
probably was like, "Man, I gotta go get a smoke. I do not like this hip hop music that he's playing."
okay,
And what was also interesting was that I was a hip hop DJ at a largely EDM club, so I was going against the grain a bit. But
ah,
I mean, I think he liked that because that means I brought in a different demographic. Like Kochi, it's not known for foreigners, but there is a sizable and very family oriented foreign experience. I can't speak for the other places that ALTs get sent to because they get sent everywhere around
yeah,
this country, but there's like maybe 100 foreigners there, and we're all like family. We have like a Facebook group. We all talk. We all hang out, and we're all scattered around the city and like the greater part of this island. And I used to bring those people there who wouldn't normally come. So like it was, I'm pretty sure you like that because here in Japan, like especially in a place like Kochi, like having foreigners there, that's a form of social currency. Like you're the it club because like all
yeah.
these cool people from all across the world. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool. I was gonna ask. So, sounds like you made some really good relationships. You had your Facebook friends, like group that you got there. Are there
Mhm.
people you're still staying in contact with there, or anybody else that ended up in Tokyo?
Oh yeah, a few of my friends end up coming to Tokyo. Yeah, yeah, like when I guess sometimes when you move on in life, like you inevitably just break away from people, and
Hmm.
we kind of like consume each other's lives passively on Instagram and Facebook. So
Yeah,
there's a couple of people who I check in with who are close friends, and then there's like a few people who I maybe see on their Instagram every now and again, and they might check in on me. I might check in on them. So, that split does occur because you move on, people move on with their lives, and things change. It was a fun experience in coaching. I really liked it. Like, also I was a volunteer at the baseball. They had a
oh yeah,
semi-pro baseball team, the Kochi Fighting Dogs, and I had a friend who worked there, and she was like on Facebook, and she was like, "Hey, like we're looking for volunteers to like serve drinks." So I was like a little mini bartender. Me and one of my good homies, I was a mini bartender, and that was another great way to like really like touch the people and interact with the people. And yes, I would see my students because it's a baseball game. And
Yeah,
like
sure.
I got to talk to some of the execs or like the organization people. I also got to talk to some of the players and stuff. Like when I think the Tokyo team came to play against the Kochi Fighting Dogs. Like I got to chat with them, move around, give people drinks. Like when you like my thing is when you come into a city, like try to find a way to like bring value to the community, and you'd be surprised at how much value you get back into your life because
Hmm.
I was able to do a lot of things and meet a lot of people just because I was just putting myself out there. And I don't know a thing about baseball, but I just knew that this is somewhere I wanted to be because it's a great way to get connected with the local culture.
Right, right. How long have I maybe that you've even touched on this, but like how long have you been in Tokyo now?
Oh man, since 2018 November, so exactly
Oh,
2 years, 2 years and 1 month.
okay, cool. Where's
Yeah.
around Tokyo? Like what are some places that have like really become, favorites of yours?
So when I do go out, I really enjoy. I obviously enjoy Shibuya. There's like a couple of bars I really enjoy going to. A Lions Bar,
Okay.
Sankey's, man, like Sankey's. This is gonna be a free plug, but man, they know
Hey.
how to throw some parties, man. Like it is like you go to that place, it is like it's like tons of foreigners, tons of people who are like early 20s, like late 20s, early 30s, like a really cool hip crowd. They play like a lot of hip hop release nights that I go, and like they throw these, man, they throw so many parties, and there's like so many girls there. So it's like it is such a great place to like go have a drink and just have a good time. And they have like tons of artists because it's like a, I don't know, it's like an exhibition. It's like an art exhibition that
Mm-hmm.
starts in the evening. Then after the art exhibition is over, they have like a party, and it's in this penthouse, like right in between Harajuku and like Shibuya, where like you're on the 10th floor. So when you go on the balcony, like you can see like the Tokyo skyline. It's a great place to party and have a drink, and it's
That's
reasonably
awesome.
priced.
What is it? You said
Yeah,
is it with an S? Senki's.
yeah. Sankey's, like Sankey apostrophe S. The parties are called, wait for it, it's called Love Hotel. It's not a Love Hotel, but the party is called
Okay.
Love Hotels. Because when I tell people I go to the Love Hotel parties, they get a total different impression. I find myself having to explain that. I told that to my friend when she was like, "You did what?" I'm like, "No, wait. I know
They're
I
the
know that
best.
reaction. Like, yeah, it's the best. Like I go to the Love Hotel parties all the time with me and my bros. It's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about here. But it's called the Love Hotel parties, like volume one, volume two, volume three. I think they're on volume 17. I don't know. But they do it like maybe once a month, once every other month. I don't know. I have a couple of friends who do rap shows there and stuff like that. So I go, I show support. I have friends who DJ there. And like every time I go, amazing time. Just an amazing time.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's always good to set down to explore. I mean, of all places, like I feel like Tokyo in many ways it's kind of infinite, right? Like
Yeah.
you can keep finding stuff. What about Shibuya? Any neighborhoods that like stick out for you?
Yeah. In Shibuya or just in general.
Ah, in general, doesn't matter.
So another neighborhood I want to shout out Kimo no Shimo Kitazawa.
Shimokitazawa. Yeah.
Shimo Kitazawa. That
Yeah.
that the place. That
Yes.
place is cool. I go to the shisha bar there. Sometimes you see like it's so hip. Like the cafe is there, the shisha bar, the crowd, the audience. It's a very unique culture. Like I went to Korea, like Seoul, and it kind of reminds me of that more than it does with Tokyo. Like it's such a cool place. So
Really.
Shimo Kitazawa is really cool. Another neighborhood that I like is I like Odaiba. It's very
Yeah.
commercial oriented and it's like family oriented, but it's just good vibes, especially during the summertime because you have like the Statue of Liberty, the Rainbow Bridge, and you have like a little mini beach there, so you can just like just bring somebody there and just have a blast. Obviously, Shibuya, Roppongi is a little bit messy, but you find
Sure.
gems there. Like it's
Yeah.
man, it is Roppongi is mad sketchy, man. Like, but like
Yep.
you find a lot of good gems there, things that you can do. So the thing about Tokyo is like you're right. I've been here for 2 years and I still haven't experienced it. And I feel like I could be here for 5 years and still haven't experienced it. Because you walk down a neighborhood like Shibuya, right? And you will walk down those streets 100, maybe a dozen times, and
Hmm.
you see everything on like the first floor. But then you realize like this, like every floor, every building has like several floors, and like each of those floors have different businesses, different bars, and like a unique experience. So it's like even a place that you walk down all the time, like you still discover something new. It's really cool.
Yeah. There's a lot. Well, it's just like crazy verticality, crazy density,
Yeah,
like you said,
yeah,
within a single block. I mean,
yeah,
how many businesses could be there? It's absolutely insane.
yeah, yeah. It is. It is. I love it. Like I had a love or hate relationship with Shibuya. You come here
Okay.
as a tourist, you're impressed. You go to Shibuya as a dude who lives here, and you just gotta like do some chores. Like you just have to go to Shibuya to get something done, like
All
maybe get
right.
your iPhone fixed or something like that. You get annoyed, but then it grows on you again. Then you just like, man, you're just that Shibuya is like that. I don't know, that annoying uncle that you love. Like it's just like, you got your good qualities, you got your bad.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's I mean, for me, where I've lived here for however many years and then still not yet to live in a city is annoying because
Are you coming to Tokyo?
well, I'll be going actually to Kyoto.
Yeah,
Kyoto as of April. That'll be, or March. I guess my contract ends here in March, and then I'll be moving to Kyoto. So I,
I
I
love
will
Kyoto.
finally. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
What's your experience there? What's
yeah, yeah. So I've been to Kyoto maybe 2 or 3 times. It's just really laid back. It's my type of vibe.
mm,
I know I do a lot of things that requires a city, but Kyoto, at least like my last experience in Kyoto was during COVID, so it wasn't many tourists there. So I was
yeah.
able to like just move around the city, and it's quite empty without tourists. It's a different
Mm-hmm.
feel when tourists aren't there. But yeah, it's such a beautiful place. It's so historical. The
Mm-hmm.
city is nested, like, in between this mountain range.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's just like covered in mountains, and like the buildings all have like this very interesting, like earth tone color palette. It is such a good place just to feel grounded, like, and really feel like you're a part of something. Like Shibuya and Tokyo just feel like an electrified, like, like a dark carnival. But like
Sure.
Kyoto just feels like just really relaxing. It's a great place.
Yeah, I love the my experience there. Like since going more and more, my buddy's there, and he has this kind of like I don't creative collective sounds like a worn out word, but like just there's a really good creative core of people there, and yeah, I feel like it's not as immediately apparent or obvious like the connections that can be made, but
Yeah.
it does have like a because of its scale, it's like it's kind of intimate. It's like very very personal,
Yeah.
um, and I do like that a lot. But I've never had a preference. This is something I think some people you find they say they're like, oh, I'm a city person or I'm a countryside person or whatever, but I actually don't have a preference for one or the other. I
Really.
think I'm like moved now out of necessity where you obviously can appreciate this, just the sort of like social connections that are possible in a city center where if you're
Yeah.
trying to do things creatively. I like being out in the countryside. It's fine, but the chances of like running into more creative like-minded people where I'm not going to have to, drive for like 40 minutes or just go to Tokyo
Yeah.
it's not really a reality. So kind of almost on necessity now, but I've enjoyed the time that I've had
So,
here.
so the productivity just by being in the city is just you can't beat it. Like you,
Can't
you
beat
just
it.
can't beat it. But however, like not everything is like just for productivity, and you got to find that balance in you because one thing I can tell you about like moving to Tokyo is that in a city of 30 million people, when you count all the metro areas that surround it,
Mm-hmm.
it's the largest city in the world. You're constantly like surrounded by people, and it can feel quite lonely if you don't know anybody here because they say loneliness isn't the idea of being by yourself, but it's the idea of feeling distance towards whatever you're around. So like
Mm-hmm.
when you first get here, it is a grind. I'm gonna tell people straight up, if you are coming here to become an English teacher in Tokyo in particular, like you have to really to think, is that really right for you? Because I had a friend who moved there, and I was like, are you sure? Because this city would grind on you, like those grueling commutes, those hour-and-a-half commutes, the expensive rent. If you don't really have money, you have to live inside share houses and cheap apartments.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like really like eat cheap food and stuff. Like it would grind you down. It would grind you down. When I was living in Kochi, like I was like for a time I was just like so much more happier because you had that sense of community. You,
Mm-hmm.
you had that sense of belonging. You felt a part of something. Like you felt like you mattered in this city like this. At least it mattered to the people around you. But here in Tokyo, people are busy, and not only that, everybody's like 2 hours away from each other, hour away from each other. So you have to really plan to like meet people. So like if you don't have like a core group of friends, like it is very easy to feel alienated. I don't know if you have that same experience when you go to Kyoto. I mean, you're ingratiated here, so you obviously know how to move. But like to anybody who's hearing this, who's like, consider making these jumps, like, there's pros and cons, and you gotta just ultimately determine like what's right for you.
No, you're absolutely right. The like I like to say, if you've wanted to feel like utterly insignificant, just go and stand at one of the central areas in Tokyo, right? Where you're
Yeah,
like, oh, I really don't matter.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
just when you said like the people are busy, everybody's doing their own thing. You couldn't have said it better. The word like alienated is
yeah.
totally true.
And
It's
people are rich here. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. And I mean, at the entry level, like everything you described, which is, I guess maybe that's it as well. I mean, I'm kind of moved by a sense of practicality, where I think a lot of people are initially swept up in the romance of a large city without
yeah,
realizing the reality of it, especially at an entry level point in your life. Like, I mean, you've done incredibly well with your position to have moved into software,
yeah,
but yeah, the average English teacher that's there is going to live in a shoebox,
yeah,
paying like absorbent rent,
yeah,
probably have brutal commutes and all of that kind of stuff. And maybe, say they get an Eikaiwa, then they get inconsistent time that's free. And so forging any
yeah.
kind of meaningful friendships is going to be really, really hard. You definitely need to choose your spot. And
You're working weekends too,
yeah,
like especially in those Eikaiwas, you're
yeah,
working like, you have you have second shift between like the afternoon and evening times. Like it's a
yeah.
it's a grueling grind, man. It's like, like you actually appreciate being in those rural areas, just waking up at 8:30 and leaving work at 4. It's
Yes.
different here in Tokyo.
Yeah. It's definitely, I don't think, I think people sometimes they run the risk of like, I did a video about this, but it was talking about they overexpose when they go looking for information
Yeah.
on like YouTube, and they think, oh, I'll learn everything that I can. But then sometimes it runs the risk of like, you know the phrase like search and ye shall find or whatever, but that can also work against you, because people
Mm,
will suddenly they'll feel paranoid, and so they'll be like, what's something bad that can happen? But
yeah.
then the algorithm's only going to feed you then now a series of like the top 300 videos, and then your impression becomes skewed. But it's all weighed in the balance, because you need to be educated but not
Yeah.
cynical about what's
Yeah.
possible. So,
Yeah.
have a vision, because if you don't, like you said, it'll grind on you. It'll chew you up, and then I mean, probably like the greatest tragedy is that people come out the other end of it cynical and disillusioned in a way that just probably only required like a little bit of a change in perspective more than anything
Bingo.
else.
And that, I mean, that's why I kind of gotta give you your props, man. Like you give a real assessment of like what it's like to be in Japan. Like again, like I've been watching videos since like 2016, so it's been like 4 years. And like I remember when you had like I mean, you've grown so much like creatively, man. Like your content game is just like it's amazing. Like but I remember like when you had like the little setup in the Leo Palace and stuff, and you were like just telling people like how it was from like dating to teaching English to like things you gotta be careful of when you're working for like some of these English teaching companies. Like you really do give a more real like experience of like what this is like for someone who is like aspiring to be in these positions. So props to you, man.
All recorded on a potato. It's like I love, in some sense, how bad they are is almost, it's again, it's, I feel like it's some of their charm that people can be
Yeah,
like, good
it
God,
is.
that's a 320p webcam that he's recording this
Yeah,
on. Like
man.
what?
In a Leo Palace,
Yeah.
like
Which is, like I say, it's part of the charm. No,
yeah.
that's well, maybe we could go back a bit more into the actual not web. I keep crossing over like website design
It's
with
okay.
like software development.
Yeah.
But what is this schedule like that for you when you're doing? Is it like a standard like Monday to Friday kind of thing that you have with it, or?
Yeah, I have a standard employment contract. It's Monday through Friday. I luckily work for a startup company that has a very unique sense of like how to handle labor and how to handle like employees. So we have flex time. So I mean, I kind of wake up like at 10:30.
Okay, yeah,
Like
sure.
like I wake up at 10:30. I work until like 8 o'clock. We there's no actual hour minimum that you have to work, but obviously you won't get your contract renewed if you don't meet certain key performance indicators, KPIs. So I wake up, I work from home, I can work remotely. My job is remotely even without COVID. So I go into the office maybe once a month, just maybe do some meeting and just some team building exercises and like just hang out with some of my coworkers. They're mad cool. But for the most part, I just work at home, man. And this setup right here, I just chill, make some coffee, make some tea. I got like a nice little monitor in front of me and got my laptop right there. So I just just relax and just type up some code and push it on the GitHub. And, we built how much detail I want to give. So I work for like a satellite company.
Okay.
And, I don't build or program satellites at all. They're just people who are much more qualified, infinitely more qualified than me that works on that. So, I work on the front end application that the customers use to consume a lot of the satellite data and the other data that we use. And it's a pretty cool experience. Working for a startup, as someone who had his own business, building web design. I really do I really want my voice to be heard. I do feel like I have something to offer. And working for such a small company, I get to see some of my ideas reflected pretty quickly into some of these product decisions, and it's awesome. I like it.
Yeah, man, that sounds great. I mean, one of the biggest things, and again, I'd love to see the world more increasingly move towards this, is just the like you said, the flex that you have in terms of like your work hours, where
Yeah.
it really feels like this tradition. There's like this balance in human nature, right? You've got like tradition and innovation, and
Yeah.
tradition is really important because like bound up in that are the things that we should carry with us through time, and they're old values, and it's really important. But then innovation keeps you fresh, keeps you evolving, keeps you kind of connected creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like, especially in the business world, because there's like a fear of like slippage of like, oh, we can't lose ground, so if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
But then it leads to a mentality where the reason that we do this is only because we've always done this. And then you get like ridiculous behaviors that ignore, practical parts of even human physiology. Like, this is very near and dear to me, like the topic of sleep, where the school system, the way that it's designed is that everybody's supposed to be up at 8 o'clock, and you're supposed to get into school, and classes are supposed to begin at 8:30, which runs in direct scientific contradiction to the circadian rhythms of adolescence. Adolescents naturally wake up later, and as opposed to understanding the physiology of your students, the people you're trying to help, you have all these kids falling asleep in class, and you're like, these are just lazy kids.
Yeah.
Or it's like, it couldn't be farther. They're just tired. They're literally tired. And the sort of benefits that come from having a good relationship between innovation and tradition, where something like flex hours, where if you work better by getting up at 10:30, then that's what your employer should want. But you have these dated ways of thinking about work just because that's the way it was.
What I think is it's a weird mixture of this old manufacturing like economy that the world used to be in like a century ago, and also just like standard business hours, and just this is the way how things been done. So I find it interesting that they don't put like a minimum hour, because I think what they're subtly saying to their employees is that this isn't a job where the longer you work here, the more shoes you can produce, because this isn't a factory. It's about how much value you contribute to the team and the overall vision of the product. So it's a very value oriented approach. Now it still works out to be like 8 hours and around that time, but what I find interesting is that when companies let go of the guardrails, I feel more passion. I feel like I want to work more. So I have trouble sleeping at night. So it can be a pain in the ass sometimes to work up at 8:30. Just it's not me being lazy. It's just sometimes I just have trouble sleeping. So the fact that I can wake up later and get to work later and still put in 8 hours, I'm so grateful. And because I also believe in the product and I enjoy the product that we're building, I gotta be honest. If the standard working hours eight hours here in Japan, I might work 9, I might work 10, because first off, they give me my independence. they hire me, so they trust me, and they give me the ability to like just do what I do best, how I see it best. And I like that. I probably talk to my manager maybe like once every 2 weeks, maybe even once a month, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just that I know what to do. I'm self-sufficient, and like I don't need someone like babysitting me. Just
No.
let me do it the best way I can. It almost feels like it reminds me of freelancing, because it's the same thing when I was a freelancer. It's like, yo, I have a project, I'm gonna get it done. Just let me do it how I get it done, and like we'll talk when it's done, and we'll communicate frequently, daily. But you're not trying to dictate how I get there. Like everybody has a different process, and so many times these companies all across the world, but here in Japan too, and also in America, they try to dictate their employees' process because they don't really trust their employees. But if you feel like you hired the right people, then let the right people do the right things the way they see fit. And I like this company in the way they do it.
Yeah, it just incentivizes you to do better work. Like you
Yeah,
say, if you feel that they're actually letting you do what works best for you, and then not to I won't beat a dead horse too bad here, but like if you're better rested, if you have trouble sleeping at night, but then you get up when it makes sense for you, you'll work way more efficiently.
yeah,
Like you'll get so much more done. You'll get more done in the time that you're working on it. The
yeah,
quality of work that you do is going to be higher because you're not
yeah.
tired.
And
It's
like
um
my
it's
flow
good.
states are in the evening personally. Like I never have flow states in the afternoon. And it's like when I used to work for this other company in Tokyo, where it's like I'm expected to be here at a reasonable hours. They had flex time, but they also had a core time. And so you couldn't
Hmm.
like really like you couldn't like fall too far off of the core time. So yeah, like I have an afternoon slump. I have trouble sleeping, so I'm pretty terrible in the morning time as well. But if you let me work to 9 o'clock at night, which is kind of rare, is like
Mm.
I will bust out some code, like I will bust out some designs. So like yeah, just let me do me. I'm gonna get my work done, and I like it. I like it. I think more companies should switch to that.
Absolutely. I mean, where it can work, I think it works really, really, really
Yeah,
well. I understand like not every industry can do this because there's
yeah,
probably like I don't know, maybe like the water purification center has to operate
yeah,
at this time or
yeah,
something, right? Like,
yeah.
but the more
Or,
the more that
mhm.
people can is just so practical. If we could more switch into that kind of labor.
Yeah, and it sounds crazy, but it turns out writing code doesn't require you to do it between the time of 9 and 5.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do it. And it becomes also an even taller order too. Like when you're on one hand, you're telling your domestic employees here in Japan, like you have to work these standard times, but then you hire someone from Europe and then they're working on their own time. And you hire someone from India and they're working on their own time. And it's like, well, if that can be true for them, why can't it be true for us? And then,
Yeah.
COVID happens and it's really like busting down this myth that so many businesses have. So it like, one of the good things out of a million horrible things that happen because of COVID is that,
Hmm.
the world is like being pushed into a new direction. And now we're forced to like reestablish the social contract that we have with work. So maybe you might see some changes. Obviously, salespeople probably have to work at a reasonable time. Salespeople, if you're selling to people who have kids, you can't be showing them to their doorstep at 10 p.m. at night. Like it's
Hmm.
just weird. So there's a practicality, but I write code. Like other people on my team, they design things. That doesn't require me to be there during these arbitrary 9 to 5 times.
Yeah, man. So and I have so much stuff. Well, still giving a nod to things like we say where maybe it's practical, but like so many different places. And I mean, also this sort of decentralization of
Yeah,
it. The fact that you could work remotely.
yeah,
Well, why not do that, right? Like, why? I mean, I think it was like Elon Musk. I saw him talking recently about like inefficiencies in business, and he was like, as soon as you find yourself more and more in meeting rooms, then you're probably going in the wrong direction because you're spending so much time talking about what you're going to do as opposed to actually doing it.
yeah.
That you just like naturally you're going to become more and more inefficient. Whereas people off doing your own things. I'm kind of curious. Like, do you have a team that you're working with while you're doing it?
Yeah, I have people who I work with closely. Then we have the whole team. The whole team probably consists of maybe a dozen or so people.
Mm-hmm.
But then like I work on the front end side of the platform team is what we call it. So
Okay.
I tend to interact with some of the front end developers more.
Okay.
The occasional back end developer if we're was it co-opting the project, and I talked to the lead designer pretty frequently. I come from also a design background, so I interact with the lead UX designer pretty frequently. And, we share ideas. But yeah, like I'm in a team. So it still feels good. Believe it or not, I like it. I mean, everyone has a difference of opinion, but we talk on Slack, we talk on GitHub, we send comments to each other on GitHub and stuff like that. And we have like Zoom meetings. And, also again, like code requires so much of being in the flow state. Like it's so me being at home in a controlled environment where it's like, there's no unpredictable variables. There's no coworkers talking behind me. This is like I no disrespect to other people's positions, but like when you're trying to like fix a bug, man, the last thing you want to do is just hear like two people from the sales department just have a full blown conversation like behind you. Like it's like I can't get anything done. I'm just gonna be looking like I'm busy, but I'm not busy.
Yeah.
So be home and the only go into the office when it's absolutely critical. Like it's like we're having a retrospective. And for those who don't know, a retrospective is like when we do a sprint. And for those who don't know, a sprint is like we're trying to implement a new product feature, a new product feature. And after we achieve that product feature implementation, or it's done, is what they call it. We sometimes we do a retrospective, and the retrospective, like, hey, this is what went right. This is what we should keep. This is the problem of the last sprint, and this is what we should try. So we tend to do that in the office, or we have like team dinners and team lunches and stuff. So those I like those team building things I like, but man, I don't want to be in the office if I gotta write code, because I gotta be honest, my setup is like infinitely better than what any office can provide. I have a $1,500 monitor, I have some nice speakers, I have a standing desk, I have the perfect setup for me. Don't bring me down. Don't just have me there so you can watch me. Like, don't make me go use that stuff in there.
It's friction, right? It's like it's just unnecessary friction. And you talking about, I think it's cool. You made the point about like when you have that retrospective and you see those people, then you haven't had overexposure to them either. So like when you get a chance to see them, it's like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. This is like, this is cool. This it does feel like a part of a team, as opposed to, the family that you spend every day with until you're like grinding against each other and, can't stand the look of them anymore. They're stink.
Yeah. On previous company, I didn't too much like the guy who I sat next to. Like, he had his habits, I had my own habits, and it's just like it was like, it's like tensions that roommates have. Like it's just like we just are two different people, and like why are we forced just to experience this? It's not to say I want to just create separation. I think the whole world should be separated, because some people might want to. Some people are extroverts, and they want to be more close to people. That's how you get their energy, their synergy, etc. But you start to realize that for over how many years that we've been doing this, that we have been overdoing it in this path. And with the help of technology, there's a new way of doing it. Like we can strike a balance. Not to say like I work from home 90% of the time during the month. Not to say every company should do that. So maybe you should go into the office every other day. Depends on your job. But it is great that we're having the opportunity to rewrite this social contract. And I'm really hoping that now that the hinges are broken, that these companies after COVID won't just reintroduce the same old thing that didn't work, because some companies are even saying like, hey, we have better productivity, we have better happiness from workers. If you have a complicated life and you have things that you need to get done and you prefer to be home, you can do that. Like, flex time and a mixture of being home. So like at my old company, I had to go into the office. I have packages, and package delivery people, they always deliver it when you're not at home. They just they watch you, they stand outside in their vehicles, they watch you, they say, okay, he goes to work at this time, I'm gonna leave a late delivery notice or a missing delivery notice, and like I never have that issue again. So it's awesome. Or like maybe I have to go to a dentist, so like I will probably like take like a break, go to the dentist, and then just like pick those hours up in the evening so I can get things done without making weird sacrifices. Like I remember when I had to go to the doctors, not to give a long answer, like at my previous company, I had to call off an entire day of work. That's just an entire day of lost productivity. Just let me do my personal thing and just come back into the office. I'm gonna get it done. Just trust me.
Yeah, it's the inefficiencies of work, right? When you make it based on simply that you got to be here in this time, people naturally, like, to make that time bearable, will start to become inefficient. If they know, well, if I'm going to I got to get through like 4 hours of work, but I got 8 hours of the day, I guess I'll just do it over that time. Whereas if you were given this responsibility, that time to yourself, you're like, oh, I'll just get it all done in this time. And then I could have, like you said, whatever other thing, life necessity that you
Yeah.
might have to do, you can take care of.
But
It's hopeful. Like you say, social contracts to be rewritten in terms of like the relationship that people have with work. I would hope on every single level. There's so many things that I could speculate as to a couple of them. I mean, one of the big ones obviously for Japan is like the technological aspect of it.
yeah.
This sort of, it's almost like a cliche to make fun of the fact that Japanese society still uses fax machines, but they do. So it should be
Yeah.
criticized, and it should be
Yeah.
something that's like swept away with
Yeah.
newer systems. It's like just like you look at like macro and micro, where a good example is like the forest, where if you regularly, like when you have a lightning strike, the lightning strike burns the forest floor and clears it, so you get a whole bunch of new growth.
Yeah.
It's a similar circumstance where something like this burns away all the unnecessary parts and
Yeah.
shines like a really obvious light on your inefficiencies. And that could be in healthcare, it could be in technology, it can be
Yeah.
in work environments. That it's never to come out the other end of this in like a celebration, because this has cost people literally. I think
Unfortunately.
global deaths are at like 1.1 million or something like that. It's like crazy, but it does. Everything is. There's always two sides to a coin. So I mean, I prefer, in the interest of like just coming out more hopeful than defeatist, that we can see where this could have a more positive impact on
Don't
people.
you think it's kind of crazy that it took a pandemic for us to realize this? Like, this technology has been here for like almost a decade, but we didn't like really believe it. Like, some industries embraced it, but a lot of industries is like, no, you're still coming into the office. Like, it took a global pandemic to convince companies that you should trust your employees and let them work from home.
In some it actually, it doesn't surprise me though, because it's again, you can see macrocosm, microcosm. What does the human body do naturally, but return to, like literally within a human's physical body, it returns to a state of homeostasis. It returns to equilibrium, and
Yeah.
we are made better. This is also interesting how it's the relationship to this like broader conversation, but we improve ourselves by going outside of equilibrium, by exerting, by going to the gym, by working out, by learning. But those are all things that are difficult, and as you do them, you want to return to this rest state. And so all these industries had reached an equilibrium, just like the human body, and it takes something like a huge physical challenge or a pandemic or whatever else to kind of like shake you out of that state of comfort. We're like, you're in a cocoon of the status quo. Like, it's familiar. So many people like borrow a tired old phrase, but like, rather the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
Like, so let's just do what's familiar and what we've done for 100 years, because I don't want to know what's on the other side of that door.
Yeah.
But now that it's happened, kind of useful in
It has
a
been
bunch of ways.
interesting. Yeah, like my ex-girlfriend, like so she graduated college this year. And so what happened was, like, she was like working for a new company, like she was working for like a big global company, and usually they if you ever seen Japanese culture, they tend to do things like almost like in the like this in the class of 2020, we're gonna have all the people that we're gonna hire this year, especially from college, all start on the exact same day, all start training on the exact same day. It's gonna be one big giant bonding experience. It's tradition. I'm pretty sure a Japanese person can shed more light on it than I can. And it was quite interesting to see how this company, like, for like maybe like, decades, they've been like having people come into the office, and they did training for months in the office. And then like literally they had to like try something new. And she had to learn her entire job remotely through Zoom. And as a result, and now she's, after the training is over, she's working. So it's quite interesting to see, like, when this company looks back, like, 6 months later in 2021, like, hey, was this class as productive, the class of 2020, as productive as a class of 2019
Mm-hmm.
and 2018. If you start seeing very similar results or boost in productivity,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's a confirmation. But even if it's like a slight decline, that's not to say let's just throw the whole entire system out. Just say like, this is an interesting start. We did something new. Let's tweak and refine it. Like there's so much potential. Not only that, like it's gonna reshape society because now you have all this office space. And I wonder what my company is gonna do because we have all this office space that we're paying for,
Mm-hmm.
several floors, and most of the people aren't even using
Using
it.
it. Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
we're gonna have to like as a society, we're gonna have to restructure what it means. Like it might be a decrease in like commercial office space and people choosing to like move outside the city for bigger places. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I technically don't live in Tokyo anymore. I moved earlier this year to like right outside and within
Okay.
Saitama, and I did that because if I'm working from home, I want a nicer apartment. Like I just want a nicer
Yeah.
apartment instead
Yeah,
of one of
sure.
these little shoe boxes. So
Yep.
like I have space. I can stretch. You can't. It's a luxury to be able to stretch inside of a Tokyo apartment. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are going to make that same decision because it's if I don't need to be in the office every day, I have no reason to live close into the city, so I can live further out. And you might actually see a broader, like a second order effect happening within the next 5 years of like maybe more things will come to places like Saitama, maybe more things might come to places outside of Tokyo because people are spending more time outside the city versus inside the city. And not just in Tokyo, but like all across the world in different countries as well. Like things are shifting in a real way here, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was where not even kind of. I mean, it's quite literally the idea of decentralization. You
Yeah.
don't need, which is really weird, right? Because you see it was like this is draw some like funny parallels here. It's like you see like technological iterations of things that seem
Yeah.
like a big leap forward, but then as technology exponentially continues to progress, so those changes come more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So like a classic example might be like everybody used CDs. That was a relatively new that replaced cassettes. But
Yeah.
then the time in the light for CDs was like overtaken by DVDs, but then that immediately became like MP3 and everything became digitized, each one of
Mm-hmm.
those with a shorter life cycle. It's kind of interesting. I wonder how, obviously, I think you have social changes that occur in a similar way,
Yeah.
where for the past like however long, centralization into cities has been the what do you want to call this, the tendency, or like the
Yeah.
increased likelihood is that people are going to live in cities. But then for reasons like you're talking about, I wonder if we suddenly see this weird like 180 where
Yeah.
when everybody seemed to be going to the cities, you'll see like a disbursement of that, and in fact it'll go in another direction. But I wonder, the one thing that does still, I think, matter, why I don't think it'll quite get too decentralized, is because people want access to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Although again, then it becomes another conversation because there's things like this, right?
Yeah.
So like the
Yeah.
access to each other is now even easier, even if you are decentralized. Like I want to link this to what my buddy Drew is doing in Kyoto with his business, where it's a business co-op space, which is not
It's
entirely
cool.
unique. Like these
Yeah.
exist, right? Like shared business spaces. But he's tried to go like the whole point of it is that it's small scale and it's really
Yeah.
human. And when you go into the work environment, it more feels like you're at a home. And
Uh-huh.
so I almost start to get this like utopial idea of like these little mini co-op workspaces where you just go into them because the environment is so nice. Almost like,
I
if you
believe
belong
in
to
that.
an Anytime Fitness, you can go to any one of their gyms,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you'd go into your co-op workspace, which will probably have a gym. Maybe it's got like a club of people that like working on. You could join them for themes, right? Like these people, when they finish their work,
Uh-huh.
they want to go and do cinema. These people want to
Yeah.
rap. These people want to do instruments. But I like something like that. That's like it's actually a return to kind of like, in a weird way, that tradition doesn't need to go away. It actually connects people.
Yeah. And
Uh,
like yeah, like the 21st century has been the death of a neighborhood and death of community. Like more
mhm.
and more people all across the world don't feel connected to their local environment because we have just so many other things to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak for Japan, but at least on a U.S. scale, because I pay
Mm-hmm.
attention a lot to like what's happening culturally in the U.S. is that, uh, I think COVID is really revealing this idea of sunshine and taxes. So people who used to live in New York City and
Mm-hmm.
people who used to live in LA, they're moving to places like Texas and Florida because there's no income tax, nicer weather, and everything is cheaper. And all of a
Good
sudden, if you
reasons.
only have to be in the office like once a month, you can save so much money not living in New York City and just catch a flight. Just
Mm-hmm.
catch a flight whenever you need to be in the office, and you go to a place where you don't have to pay any income tax. So that's incredible. It is going to like go against this grain. So quick plug, I do a book podcast. It's Untitled right now, but follow me on Instagram. And because we're building it out. And one of the books that we're going to read in the episode coming up is called The New Geography of Jobs. And what they
Okay.
discuss in this book, because I already read it,
Mm-hmm.
was the idea that yeah, you are flat out just more productive being into the city. And the best advice that you can give someone in their 20s or early in their professional career is get credentialed and get to a city, because you're just far more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Because cities have the ability to it's economies of scale. So if you're like if you study a very peculiar science major and you're living in the middle of Alabama, for those who know Alabama, it's in the middle of nowhere. You probably can't really utilize your talent. So that science major might just turn into a basic biology teacher, and you're just doing some generalist practice. But the moment you move to a place like Boston, New York City, or whatever hub
Mm-hmm.
for that major, you can all of a sudden specialize, and then people who are in very adjacent niches can like make up for your specialization. A perfect example is like corporate lawyers in New York City. You can be a corporate tech lawyer in New York City or a corporate finance lawyer in New York City, and you can make $200,000-$400,000, but you probably couldn't be that in North Dakota, like because it's just
Right.
no need for that level of specialization. So we're going to push up against that. So, and that's that friction that we need, because we're pulling in a different direction. But I do believe the forces of just being centralized inside of a hub will pull back just a little bit. So we're gonna have to find that balance. Like we can move out the city, but maybe we can't move too far out the city. Or like, right
Right.
now we're working from home majority of the time, but maybe we might find a balance of only going half of the time, because it is
Right.
going to be a big order, a big request for you to tell your employees, hey, look, COVID is over. So I want you guys to do a 1.5 hour commute into the city and
Yeah.
out the city every day from now on. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that. But people are more productive in the city. So it's going to be an interesting balance. That's going to be our third episode. We already, we do these episodes once a month, me and my friend, for this book podcast. And that's going to be the third episode where we talk about the new geography of jobs. So stay tuned.
What's the specific name of it? Like, how would people find it? Like,
Man, like and it's we don't have a name for the podcast, so I'm
that's
plugging
all good.
something that doesn't have a name. So what me and my friend is doing right now is that I was like, hey, we're gonna write down 100 names each for this podcast. I know it
Oh,
sounds
cool.
crazy. She was like, what? Like, I'm not doing that. I was like, no, trust me. It's a part of the creative process.
Yeah,
We're
sure.
going to write as many names possible. It's gonna be a great exercise. This is a good friend of mine for 10 years, but this is our first time really working together. So we need to understand each other, understand how we see the podcast, how I see it, how she see it, what she thinks the name should be, what I think the name should be. And, we're going to have a list, and we're just going to go through the list. And I expect 98% of those things to be bad. And, but the beauty in that is that we can see where each of us is coming from, and it'll eventually be something good. So as a designer, I really embrace the design process. Like when I'm building up a website, I have art boards just all across my monitor. And, every single time I want to make a tweak to like my design, I just
Mm-hmm.
copy the entire artboard and tweak it. So by the end of this process, it could take days, it could take weeks, or even hours. I might have like 100 different prototype designs just sitting on my artboards.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, I'm able to look at a macro scale of like where my ideas are going, where I think the place is going. And I'm able to like, take the design that has the best,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm able to take the design that has like, maybe it's mostly bad, but I like this one part. So let's add that one part into this design, and let's just start throwing it all in there. Next thing you know, I got this stew of like just like of a beautiful product, and that's how I end up like doing my design. So we're approaching our podcast naming like that. We're gonna come up with 200 names, 100 apiece, and we're gonna come up with something. So if you follow me on Instagram, that's where you'll get the quickest updates, because the YouTube channel is pretty barren. You follow it, looks like a desert, doesn't look professional at all, but trust me, we appreciate high quality content. We're working on it. We prefer to built the ship, built the plane as we fly it. You know that cliche.
Okay, I've never heard of
So
that, but I like
yeah,
it. Yeah, sure.
we're building the
Yeah,
plane as we fly it, opposed to like having the perfectionist mentality of like we're gonna have everything just solved. Like we're amateurs,
right.
so we're just gonna start it and we're just gonna build it because YouTube, the internet, it's a living document. It's a living document. So we're
It's a
gonna
great
grow.
description.
Yeah, we're gonna grow.
Oh, that's really cool, man. Yeah, I do. I love iterating like the way that you describe there. It's something that I guess I do. Maybe I do a little bit of it, but like I really do appreciate, at least for in my capacity. I guess it would be like for any sort of writing,
Yeah.
that usually. Something that I found, it was almost to me, it's like almost like a mystical experience, like
Mm-hmm.
that I always tell myself like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'll just sit down and I'll start taking notes. And there's this inertia where it's funny to me how I'll write, in the first 5 minutes, 7 minutes, like an idea, and it is nothing. But
Yeah.
then it's through doing that at 10 minutes, I get one good idea. And
Yeah.
then at 15, I'll get a really good idea.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, man, like almost like magic, that process starts to reveal great ideas that start
Yeah.
to become so good.
Yeah.
It seems like you almost feel like you're just tuning into something outside of yourself where you needed to like catch the signal, but it takes that initial iterative amount of steps that
Yeah.
you tune into it. So to hear you describe it like that, like 100 different names,
Yeah.
or like you say, this multiple boards that you're then seeing it change through, it's like that's
Well, I set the bar almost comically high. Like, come on, we're not gonna like think of 100 good names, but that's the point. Because one thing I understand about creativity, because I do photography, I make raps, I make poetry, I do design, I do programming. Creativity lives on two axes on my mind, axes. I don't speak English correctly, so just correct me.
neither do I. You're in good company.
So you have the more time you spend on the project, that higher chance of you being creative, right? Creativity also is like taking two polar opposite ideas and just bringing them together. Like that's what I think creativity is. You think of the iPhone, you think of someone combining the phone and the camera. Sounds obvious in hindsight. It was actually pretty innovative back then. That's why they're a $1 trillion company. But that's what it is. And when you set the bar ridiculously high, you get all the obvious ideas out. You get your worst ideas out. If you ever take a design course, they'll tell you like, your first idea is your worst idea. So you get all the worst ideas out, your first ideas out, and you start to exhaust yourself, kind of like working out. And this is where the growth happens. Like you exhaust yourself, and now you're forced to like really think outside the box. You're bored, you're frustrated. You have all of you ran out of all of your first ideas, and now you're starting to connect all of these different dots. You're looking back at all your old attempts, and you're trying to combine them together, and you're just throwing things against the wall. It's that messy process that I like a lot, and that's what I wanted to do. So like I'm hoping we can come up with a cool, catchy, and marketable name doing that. So like that's creative process. It's this time spent and combining two like separate ideas and putting them together.
Absolutely. And I think that a good example, like something you could run parallel to this that extends it, is in a day that you're trying to be creative and come up with a good idea. I think it's a massive mistake to think that a day spent where by the end of it, in that moment, you finish and say, I've made absolutely no progress because every single idea that I've come up with today is not one that I would use.
Yeah.
But again, the way that our brain works is that through that experience that you had during the course of the day, when you sleep, it's this classic thing that people think of sleep as this period of time where your brain is inactive, but in fact, your brain is as active, if not more active, as it takes in all of that information that you process during the day and will make massive spontaneous leaps. Because when you're sleeping, and this is it connects as well what you said to connecting what seem like opposed ideas, you have activity through your whole brain that's connecting all the different ways that you were creative and putting the blocks together. And they've shown this, that if you get a good sleep after a creative session where nothing came of it, you wake up the next morning and the first thing you do is your perfect idea, but it only came about because you had spent that first day failing to enough to
Bingo.
give your brain information to work with as you slept. So another, just an encouragement I guess I would have for people, where like even if you get through a full day and you're like, man, I accomplished nothing, actually that apparent failure is another kind of like step in this process to get to something that
Mhm.
you know, might be the best name that you guys are going to have for your
Yeah,
podcast, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah. You know, and also we're trying to remove judgment in this creative process because you know, judgment can be the death of creativity. You know, being reasonable can be the death of creativity. Like, you know, you wanna have that editor's brain after you have your creation session. So
yeah,
that's like, you know, after we do this, so I'm like, when we set the bar so high, it's almost
yes,
impractical for you to have the editor's brain on.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like
yeah, totally,
it's like if
totally.
you won't get 100 names. Like, I'm trust me, I'm 50 names in, and like we have a deadline on Friday, which is another thing for creativity.
Okay.
What's it called? You have to turn off that editor's brain just you just
Mm,
have to. And then we get together, and then so we can be our cynical selves and just be like, that works, that don't work, maybe that work, or aha, like, you
mm,
know, that name there, right there, it's not perfect, it's not in its final form, but let's tweak it a little bit, and then we're gonna get
mm,
there. And that's what I do with my designs, and that's why, you know, that's what I do with my music. That's what I do with like a bunch of other stuff. It's just that, you know, it's something that you learn, and when you believe in the creative process, you know, you just embrace the idea of, like, you know, failing forward. You know, you mentioned it, like, you know, when I have not even with programming, man, like when I
mm,
can't think of a bug, go
mm.
for a walk, hop in the shower, go grab a cup of coffee, like do get some fresh air, and I come back and it's like, aha, that's my
Yeah.
secret. That's that's my secret. It's just like, I'm gonna hop in the shower, I'm gonna go grab a cup of coffee, go for a walk, and I got it.
So I'm curious about you when you talked about design. I mean, obviously, that makes me think of when you're doing things like the actual website layout or something. But do you
Yeah.
also do like a visual design as well?
Oh, what do you mean? Like, do
Well,
I
like
draw?
graphic design. Do you do graphic design?
I'm horrible at it. I'm absolutely
Okay.
horrible at it. Like, I can't draw to save my life. I
Okay.
wish it was a if I was a good drawer, I never would have got into web design.
Okay. All
Like, you know,
right.
web design, whether you realize it or not, it's just boxes. Like, you're just putting boxes next to each other, whether
Okay.
the white space is invisible boxes or whatever. Like, even the text, if you think of it conceptually, it's a block of text, it's a box. So it's like,
Yes.
you know, like, it's more structured, and that's what I like about it. So nah, I wish I could do graphic design. I like to think I got good taste. I work with people who know how to draw, and I tell them what I want, or they tell me what they want, or they tell
Mm.
me what the idea is, because, you know, they're professionals and they're experts. But no, I don't do visual design. You know, I do typography, I do layouts.
Okay.
So like,
Okay.
yeah, when I was in college, I took a wide variety of courses, everything from like theater class to like a failed programming class or a nearly failed programming class to
Mm.
web design classes to economic classes, political science. Like, you know, I had a pretty weird experience in college, and you know, that's one of the things I picked up on by, you know, taking a couple of design courses.
Oh, that's really good. It's funny you saying that about you would do digital design, or like for that reason that's why you done web design. I feel actually
Yeah,
like very you know, I feel some kinship to that, and the fact that if I could have drawn, then maybe I wouldn't have done cinematography,
yeah.
because like actually my brother is like this he my eldest brother, he's like an incredible artist, and I was always like jealous in a good way, where I was like, man, I would have loved access to that medium. But
Yeah.
then, you know, we often find ourselves, provided we pursue them, still like doing a thing that we really enjoy. So I get the impression that the design that you still do now is, you would say, is very fulfilling for you.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I gotta get my vision out. I'm a very visual guy myself. So like, you know, I gotta
Mm,
get my vision out. You know, I did web design, I do photography. You know, I play around with video, not a videographer, but I play around with it. Like, you know,
mm-hmm.
yeah, you know, I have this brain that just like thinks of like different content, different ideas. So yeah, I need to express myself. That's what keeps me going. So yeah, yeah, it's very fulfilling.
Are you still writing? Like, do you still rap? I can't remember if you said if you still did that, or if it's on hiatus.
So I used to do it a lot when I was in my early
Okay.
20s, and I used to do it a lot when I was in high school. I was writing raps for like nearly 7 years, and
Oh wow. Okay.
I took a long break. I took a long break. I used to do performances and things like that. You might splice in some of the footage and stuff, but yeah, I used to do it, and then I took a deep hiatus, man. If I'm being honest, I got a massive writer's block, and it was so hard, like, and I couldn't think of anything, so I stopped. And now recently, I actually, picked it up again.
Oh,
It's not,
cool.
it's
Okay.
not, it's not what's it called? It's never been a goal of mine. And that's one of the things my relationship with rap. Like, I don't want to be a rapper. I knew that for
Sure.
a fact. I like writing rap. So what do you
Hmm.
do? Like, so if you're not being a rapper, like, what are you doing this for? So it's kind of hard too. It's also kind of hard because I have a big dream. I have an ultimate end goal that I want to achieve in life.
What is that? What is the
Hip
end
hop.
goal?
I want to start my own tech company, and I'm putting that
Oh,
out there,
okay.
man. Like,
Okay.
I'm gonna start it. I'm gonna start it one day. And
Okay.
like, that's like, even as a kid, I always wanted to do that, and I always knew that even if I did rap, like, I'll only do it for like a subset of my life. Like,
I see.
I wanna go to Silicon Valley and compete with those guys. It's not many people that look like me, and so it's like, I want to change that narrative. So
Right.
yeah, that's what I really want to do.
What kind of I mean maybe this is too early on, but like what kind of tech company, what would you want to do? What
I
kind
don't
of
know
work?
exactly. It's probably
Okay.
services. It's definitely be services. That's where the world is going. Everything is subscription nowadays, so rightfully so. It's a predictable revenue model. Instead of having the ebbs and flows of like having like this feast and famine business model where you sell a product, you have to convince your customers to buy a product again a year or two from now. You can just sell them a subscription. So you tend to maximize the customer value and relationship. And that's really, if you're wondering like, oh, why do you do so many creative things? I mean, that's really what this mantra has been for me. Is like DIY. Like, ever since I was in my what's it called earlier days in
Hmm.
college when I was a teenager. My ultimate end goal was like to create a tech product, and like to create a tech product, well, you can't just write it down on paper. Like, you had to start to create it. So I learned web design. I learned basic design.
Hmm.
Okay, I can design the product, but now I can't build it. I have to hire someone to build it. So I guess that's what subconsciously drew me to programming, because now I can program it. And
Yeah.
I also, like, my degree, believe it or not, is in media and marketing. So I always had like a business
Okay.
always had like a very strong interest in business and marketing. And this podcast too, we're going to be reading a lot of business books, so it's like a post college, like, education for myself. And my ultimate goal is like, just have the ability to create a prototype with as minimum dependencies as possible, like decrease the outside variables or relying on other people. I want to be able to create the prototype and go into one of those investor meetings and just pitch the idea. So I'm almost there. Like, I'm still pretty new to programming. Only been doing it for 2 years, but
Yeah,
I'm
you move
almost,
pretty fast though, man. Honestly, like
yeah.
when I was, in the scale of just how long it can often take people to do anything else that you successfully migrated from one then the other. And I mean, I really do see it at this point. Obviously, you have your great ambition. I don't think that dreams are made to
Thank
be
you.
huge, right? Why
Yeah.
have anything less than a massive dream? But in terms of providing yourself now foundationally, you're I would say it's pretty much unstoppable, right? Because it's so much of the time it's getting our first foot in the door, where
Yeah.
you did that with the first job, and now you've cemented that with this one. So like
Yeah.
if you ever need to, it would be doing a disservice to how good those jobs are to say like do a fallback to what you're doing now, which is often what people aspire to as an end game.
Yeah.
That's set yourself up for some like great
Yeah.
success, I
Yeah.
think.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And, you got to define yourself. And, it wasn't easy. Yeah, it's really hard to reinvent yourself. You got to think like, I don't speak Japanese, and that's an important thing to note. So doing this is like really hard to even do in Japan, because I don't speak I don't speak any Japanese at all. So like, it's kind of hard to navigate it. So you kind of just have to like remove all self doubt, because yeah, I was in coaching. I was telling people like I want to find a job outside of teaching English. You'd be surprised how many people told me, "Good luck with that."
Yeah.
Like, you don't speak any Japanese. Like, what you need to do is study Japanese for 4 or 5 years, and then
Hmm.
like, find a job inside the office. I didn't believe that. I was like, no, I got another way. Like, what the ultimate language of them all, like programming, because you can write code in any country. So like,
Yeah, you
and
you
it
do
just so
speak another
aligned. Yeah.
language, you
Yeah,
know?
it also aligned with my overall ambition. So things happen serendipitously, and like you reinvented yourself too. Like I've been watching your growth for like such a long time. Like you came here as an aspiring content creator, and man, like your movies, not your movies, they seem like movies at this point. Your YouTube videos are the quality, man. Like like it's insane, dude. Like I am really impressed at like how far you came, because I've been watching you since like late 2016, man. So bravo, man. I feel like you're like a step away from being like one of Japan's best cinematographers.
I'm now upgraded to the Potato S. I've gone to the super brand model. Yeah, no, it's definitely improvement And like we were talking about, you were saying, you know, the way that you've been able to improve yourself. It's just like it's such a something I'm grateful for, and like I feel the world could never it could never be overstated. Just the ability that you have now, if you have an internet connection, to
Yes.
self educate with what I mean. And the thing is, like, I kind of have a like a holistic interest in all of, I guess, digital media. But if you, and probably would do better more quickly than I ever have, like the ability to specialize, like if you wanted to
Mm.
become a colorist
Yeah.
specifically, if you wanted to become specifically a podcaster on like a niche topic, I think people are really well served by fulfilling their niche interests. But there's just like, I almost say now, there's like no excuse
Yeah.
not to find something because it's all there for you.
You
It's
have an
like,
audience. You have in the
yeah,
first time in history, you have the same device you can create, you can publish to. You can take a picture with a phone and publish it all using the same device. Before that, you took a picture on like a Kodak camera, you had to get it printed up and you had to like, send it to somebody. Like it took like it was a multiple step process. Like you can do everything from a single device now. It is easier than ever. The only thing that's holding like people back is ourselves. I'm still holding myself back. Like there's certain myths that I still believe that I'm trying to unlearn. So
mhm,
like there's like you said, man, like there's just so many opportunities. You just have to go out there and create it.
totally. The yeah, it's you know, we're telling ourselves a story constantly of like
Yeah.
what is and is not possible. I mean, I guess the most important thing for people is just generally to it's like that classic idea. It's like it's not the answer, it's the question,
Yeah.
but people just need to ask the right question. And
Yeah.
usually that amounts to what really interests me, but in an active way as opposed to passive, because we have a lot of like inbuilt primal interests that capture our attention, which we might mistake for an interest when really it's something that just occupies us. You know,
Yeah.
it's easy to be lost in an infinite scroll on, you know, any number of like things where without ever asking like, do I want to do this,
Yeah.
or is this something that I could learn to do, or like I was talking to my friend today too. I don't want to get too narrow-minded as well in this idea that everybody has to be, you need to be excelling and you need to be finding like whatever your passion. Sometimes the simplest life is the best, but
Yeah.
I think it's denying a fundamental part of human nature not to see that we are at our best when we find something that we engage with in a way
Yeah.
that we become more of an active participant as opposed to
Yes.
simply a consumer of that thing.
Yeah. This is when you expound upon the idea of what a relationship is, like the relationship you have with your hobbies, your dreams, your work, etc., your studies. How you treat that relationship says a lot about you, like who you are. Yeah, I do believe like people's work and their work ethic speaks for who they are and how they treat their work and how they view their work, because
Hmm.
you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into that. And there's just something, at least for me, like in the creative process. I don't know, it's like being like a rock star salesman, but like
Hmm.
I've learned so much about myself. I've learned my own self doubts. I have like battled with my own limitations. I see what other designers do, and I immediately get like the insecurity to be like, I can't do that. But then I try to do that, and I almost excel. And sometimes I feel like I do better sometimes. And it's like, you go through this process and you just learn so much from yourself. And like I think it's a robbery, because I know people in my life who never pushed themselves, who never really got out of their comfort zone. They kind of plateaued, they kind of comfortably plateaued, and they never really seen seen what happens when you challenge yourself, when you put yourself through those times. And the best advice I could tell people is that I have dreams, but I don't focus on my dreams. Like I like, believe it or not, I'm not like I think it's better to be a more process oriented person, because when
Hmm.
you fall in love
Hmm.
with the process and the
Yeah.
journey,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what inevitably gets you to your dreams. Like when you love what you do and you wake up and you do it every day, like you get there, and you get there when you're ready and when it's your time to get there. But I met so many people in this world where like, especially with Instagram, where it's like you can create the facade of where you're at, and they
Sure.
embrace that facade. So they skip all the steps, and it's just like, you're just robbing yourself of it. Like that grind, man. That there's a beauty in the struggle, man. There's a real beauty in it. You kind of got to embrace it.
True. Yeah. Where all things are kind of relative, that you could both easily appear to have whatever, kind of status or life it is that you want to present, but then
Yeah.
the reality is, like, are you actually in a process of it, or is that just simply posted? Because then one is an active life, one is one that you're like an observer of your own life, because you're not
Yeah.
actually doing anything that you're representing yourself as having done.
Well, I
It's
guess
like,
there's a skill in that too, because these Instagram influencers, they they're they're the, like, they say you have like the painter and then like the painting, like they're like the painting, like they craft this facade so exceptionally well that it somehow, like, in a weird way, it works for them. Like they faked it to actually became their lives. So maybe that's there's I guess there's a twist in that, but
yeah,
for most
yeah, yeah,
people it's not.
yeah.
Like
It's
for most people.
it's definitely, it's interesting. Like, I think how we're never gonna. I always want. There's a cool book. It's called Enlightenment Now, and it's talking about the different metrics which we would gauge the success of our society. And
Mm,
it would be based on like a lot of practical stuff. It would be like
yeah,
number of people attending school, literacy, mothers' deaths at childbirth, like
yeah,
every single thing. And they're all getting better and better and better and better. But along with these things is always a new set of problems. You're generally raising the bar in terms of like standard of living, which is
yeah,
awesome. But it seems to be that you cannot ever ignore that everything is a tool. Like, I can't remember who I heard describe like social media, although this gets a little more nuanced, but I think it was really well described as a mirror. And it's kind of this
yeah,
idea, it's like whatever you hold up to it, it's going to reflect back at you. This is really, really obvious in the algorithms of like YouTube. If you
yeah,
search for how to draw better, it becomes the most beautiful platform in the world, because
yeah.
you'll just be fed this mirror back at yourself of new artists, new techniques, new, anything to do with that like really positive thing. But then if you look up something really negative, like I heard that flat Earth is real, and so suddenly you're
Oh
just a
man,
cesspool, right? But it's that as things become increasingly efficient at giving us more agency
yeah,
with little effort, it also means that you can get away without actually using that to elevate yourself more, but just getting into like what is apparently an elevated state of being, which is really just you at like hyper coasting.
yeah,
It's like it's never been easier to have a meaningless life. Like
yes,
that's like you can you can indulge, you can have every dopamine spike that you could possibly imagine, you can be well fed, you can have a home, you can have a job, and have it mean absolutely nothing in a way that was never possible before. So it's like,
well,
yeah.
there's so much you said about that. Like, like this is just my quick hot take about YouTube. Like, and YouTube and other social media is my personal opinion. Like, these platforms can be like a great, like, tool
Mm.
of making you a better person and possibly making the world a better place. But also these algorithms, man, they tend to I think the way they're tweaked is just, I feel like it's sometimes it destroys society in a way, and it destroys people. Like, I'm at the point, and this is my hot take, I think social media is worse than cigarettes. I think we're gonna look back 20 years and be like, social media is by far is worse than having a cigarette habit, because cigarettes kill you. That's a fact. But social media degrades who you are as a person. Like, you can pick
Sure.
up a smoking habit, and like you have friends who smoke probably, and they didn't really change that much. I mean, they might crave a cigarette like every so often, but like,
Hmm.
social media destroys who you are, because the algorithm, it doesn't have that happiness variable, it doesn't have that fulfillment variable, it has that engagement variable, it has that variable of like, we're gonna do whatever it is that engages you, and we don't really care what it is, even if it's flat Earth. Like, like if this is real life, like imagine someone just like handing you meth, like, this, we don't care whether or not it's good for you. You do it, so we're gonna just give you more of it. And it's like, unfortunately, social media can, like, it can send people into like emotional spirals and like a downward spiral or even an upward spiral. You know, you go into this loop of finding good content and it's like a positive reinforcement loop, but it's also a downward spiral. Like, I'm not gonna make it political at all, but when I was, this it's been a tumultuous year, and I feel like I was going through like a downward spiral with like the YouTube suggestions because I was keeping up with politics and things that are going on in the world, and it just the suggestions just start coming and coming and coming, and you gotta realize like, okay, I need to take a step back. Like this content, this is not healthy for me at all, and I need to take a step back. So it is really hard nowadays. It is really hard. All these gifts can also be a curse.
Yeah, I think you isolated there what is critically wrong with it. And when I was talking about the nuance in more than just saying it's simply a mirror and it's personal responsibility towards what it is that you consume, there is a balance that is created by what is weighed by the algorithm. And the fact that they move to, and you said it specifically, that it's moved to engagement is a problem. Because what it just so happens to be is that we at our baser instincts, at our baser impulses, are most attracted to shock and awe.
Things that scare us.
We're designed to do that because it was the fight or flight response that is supposed to protect us. So things that spark interest are usually things that spark some sort of cortisone response. And so that means preferential treatment is given on the algorithm to things which are, generally speaking, if not necessarily immediately toxic, things that are giving rise to sort of like conflict in our minds. Yeah. And it means that it's not, and so that I feel could be changed. There could be tweaks made that does not, you cannot divorce the responsibility that the algorithm has to the sort of material that is more often than not getting suggested to people. And it's really bad. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
With I follow this pretty deeply. For one, even these engineers don't really know how these algorithms work because it's a black box. You create it and it kind of takes a life of its own.
Right.
Machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Right.
Also, there's a disincentive model. Like I believe that you can fix what's wrong with corporations, and you can fix a lot of what's wrong with the world through just analyzing the incentives. Me reading economic books, I'm starting to realize like everything is just based off of incentives. So these companies, Facebook in particular and YouTube in particular, they make money largely off of advertisements, right? Yes. So how do you get more ad money or ad revenue? You have to increase engagement. So how do you increase engagement? Well, by any means necessary. So if you wanted to fix, because Facebook is like the worst corporate of them all. If you wanted to fix Facebook tomorrow, I think, Facebook makes on average off of per Facebook user is $19. Like I think last time I read that statistic, they make about $20 per user off for advertisements and on the whole, I guess, product. You are the product on Facebook. So in a product life cycle, like they make like $20. So if you just charge someone like $2 a month to use Facebook, you no longer need to put the advertisements on there. Just make the money that way. Now, what immediately happen with Facebook would say as well as supply and demand, people aren't going to pay $2 and people like the Facebook will immediately drop in terms of like having like as many users. And well, to be quite frank, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it should be like 2 billion users on Facebook on a single platform that one person controls. This man has more power over freedom of speech than anyone else in the world. You got to think like, you got to think of all of the institutions. You have the U.S. government, you have the Chinese government, you have capitalism, you have religion. Facebook has more users than all of them. There's probably more Facebook users than people who practice any economic system in the world. There's probably, there's probably more Facebook users than people who practice any religion in the world. And one man sits on top of that. He's not an elected official. It is a pretty dark thing when you think about it. And as I say this publicly, I realize I probably would never have a job at Facebook, but that's a good thing. The company is evil.
It's better to remain objective and retain your soul than get employed by Facebook. That's it's and that's a whole new thing. It's like this idea, like we're talking about how there's just this. Everybody resists change, and everybody doesn't, or just maybe I should say that's maybe more of a bit of a societal thing. People are so blind usually, and for fair reasons, that we have to we got to make money, we got to pay our rent, that paying attention to the evolution of social circumstances and the march of technology isn't, if you ask someone, what's your priority today? You're like, well, finding an equilibrium with our social progress and technological development.
Yeah.
Probably not the first thing that people are going to say, but it has such obviously like a massive impact and only increases in terms of like just a simple concept is leverage. Yeah. And technology is the like abstract form of leverage. That's what it does. And so we're and it won't stop. It's only going to get crazier in terms of what increases in leverage these things are going to have on everything. And we've got to adapt. We usually have. I mean, but the ways that humans
pacing, it's too fast now.
Yeah, this is the thing, and the leverage is so powerful, where it's like this is it gets into an interesting kind of idea where it hasn't spoken well to our track record with how we technologically progress. When you had the Industrial Revolution, well, what did that create in terms of like our first, how would you say it? Like our first expression of that technology was the First World War. And then when you have the next, like, call it, what do you want to, not paradigm shift, but just the next like major progress is the nuclear age. Well, what did we do with that? We dropped bombs on people with that one. And then we had the internet. We had the Industrial Revolution, Nuclear Revolution, and now Informational Revolution. And what did we create with that? We created Facebook and Google, and basically corporations more powerful than any combined nation state. So
it's destroying democracies, man. Like it is insane. Like, well, I think we will look back at what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s up into 2016 as like the golden age of tech. That's when everyone was a tech optimist. And, Facebook mantra back in the day was move fast and break things. And guess what, Facebook, you are one of the world's largest companies, and now you destroy, modern day democracies. Like, congratulations, you move fast and you broke something. It takes a real critique. Yeah. I'm a crusader towards this idea that and somewhere in Silicon Valley, you have the highest concentration of the smartest people in the world. Like, never in human history have you had that many people with that high of an IQ. All sitting in like a couple of miles or kilometers, what have you, like within each other. And the best thing they can think of is advertisements and engagement. That's the best thing that y'all can think of. Like, for real, like, come on, man. Like it is this chase for like just corporate profit and like just this chase of power that just really needs to be like, I guess, like, just brought down a little bit. I love capitalism. I want to start a business one day. I do believe what's wrong with capitalism can be fixed with right was capitalism, but I don't know, man. Like the problem is that you privatize the gains. So Facebook makes billions of dollars, and then like you socialize the losses. So Facebook is, because in their incentives, they're not responsible for what happens to society on a broader scale, and they only focus on like returning shareholder values that you can destroy society and not be responsible for it. Then you can make all the money from it, and it's just like it's this weird model where it's like, oh, you have misinformation. Like, I mean, think about it. Like, I go to Starbucks. There's a Starbucks like down the street from where I live. And like, Facebook has been accused of like, radicalizing people, turning people towards ISIS and all this other stuff. Like, can you imagine if a local Starbucks was doing that? It would be shut down. It would be shut down. Like, imagine if the Ford Motor Company was radicalizing people. It would be shut down. But for some reason, we have decided society that technology, platforms like Google and Facebook, hey, you're an exception. You can radicalize people, like, and just throw your hands up at the problem and be like, oh, we can't fix it. We don't know what to do. Come on, man. Like, come on. It both can't be true. You can't be like a once in a lifetime genius, but then can't figure this out. Like, come on. That's why I said it's an incentive issue. So
I think that was like the way you described it there. Incentives. I think that's at the core of it. I'm like, it doesn't sound like I haven't read any sort of economic books or anything, but I do like kind of call it like it's not common wisdom. What do you call it? Common sense would dictate that when you incentivize people to do things, it's just like positive reinforcement to do something. That I really do think that shapes things. Like, Well, one of the issues, or just like it's like funneling people. I mean, maybe it's almost like incentives light. You know, it's not
Yeah.
quite exactly reward, but it's like really taking into account where when you create a block here, well,
Yeah.
then naturally see where the next step is that people are gonna go. And then that you can almost like you're divorcing yourself of the morality of it. You're just seeing objectively how things will behave given the physics set
Yeah.
against them. And
Yeah.
I think that that's it's also a useful way that yeah, you don't need to moralize it, because I think moralizing it starts to it create people. Nothing unites anyone more than an enemy,
Yeah.
and nothing gives people more purpose than an enemy. But oftentimes that ends up losing nuance.
Yeah.
You know, like and so it's easy to demonize somebody because it's so convenient to all the ways that we like to be fulfilled. Whereas if you look at it in a non-moral perspective and you're like, actually, these tech companies aren't evil. It's just that given that we don't have the right regulations in place, how would you behave?
Yeah.
Well, I probably would do the same thing. Well, then that would lead to this domino and this domino and this domino, but then not that we should ignore them. It definitely, like, I completely agree with you that doesn't mean that somebody should stand outside of their responsibility for what they've created. And I do think a powerful, powerful force is greed. And
Yes.
having like, it's weird because these are, make it like a little bit abstract, that these are all things that exist in shades, right? Because greed by another word is ambition. Ambition by another word is aspiration.
Yeah.
So it's not always, it's just that we're kind of shades of these qualities that if we go too far into one of them, that it becomes the horrible form of it. Where I'm, like you said, I'm not against what's that thing that runs the Western world? Capitalism, that's the
capitalism.
word.
Yeah.
Not against it at all, but definitely that we should be, like considering how it can be done better, kind of returning almost to like what we were talking about at the beginning, that just because capitalism worked in this way doesn't mean that it couldn't work in this way. Like, I think when you were talking about like assessing value, somebody that I really like to listen to, really reasonable. It's great that he's like involved with politics in whatever context he did, was like Andrew Yang.
Yeah, I love that guy. I love that guy. Yeah.
Right on. And he was talking about like one of the major errors of the current economic model is to misplace gross GDP as success compared to human value, like human dignity, where he's like, we should actually put into the capitalist model that human dignity and preventing suffering becomes a part of a capitalistic model. And I think this exists, not to, I'll end my tirade soon so I don't end up where it's like 15 minutes of the podcast I'm talking here, but where, for example, what the world needs now is to definitely go away from fossil fuels. It needs alternative fuel sources, we'll say, alternative energy sources. And the mistake that you'll see from some part of this conversation is to say that, well, then you'll destroy this industry and all these people will suffer. But the reality is that if you innovate, you'll actually create a whole new job spectrum for people to become a part of.
Bingo.
That probably people will have greater access to, because now we have freedom of information that they don't need to go to a university. They can just go on Google or YouTube and figure out how to become like a wind like tech design. And then now it just so happens that that's the moral choice. But really, it's just like we're saying, we're changed the physics of the equation that it has a different outcome. It's not that the economy has to be driven by old, industries. It can adapt, and it can adapt and be moral at the same time, but almost like just a happenstance if you make the effort.
I mean, that's the problem with modern day government. I mean, it's so many gems that you put in there. Like, that's the problem with modern day government, is that we I will argue in America you have a form of cronyism, like crony capitalism, because you have the
Yeah.
private sector and the public sector merge in a real way where it's like a revolving door. These people are hopping into the private industry and coming back into government. So
Right.
not really doing what's best for the people. They're doing best for what's in their circle. And like that, and that's the problem because okay, you have universities, which is one part of the system, which is able to think long term, but they don't have the budget for it. Then you have corporations, which are their goal is to return shareholder value, and I am not against that. You return shareholder value, and that's what you're supposed to do. A corporation is doing what it's supposed to do. So I
Right.
actually think corporations are doing what they're expected. But it's
Yeah.
the government. It's like you're there to think long term. You have the largest budgets, particularly in the U.S., and you can set forth the agenda. But the problem is that we just have bad politicians, and you can go on. That's an entirely different podcast on why, but we just have really bad politicians who aren't passing good policies, because we need to really start thinking of what is best for us long term, because having fossil fuel is not good for us economically speaking. You don't have to be like a social justice warrior to realize that it's just a bad idea, and the
Yeah.
country that can figure out this problem now will reap the capitalistic benefits soon, and you would take the most out of that supply chain.
Yeah.
When you end it, people have this idea that the pie is only so big, and you have to constantly remind people that we can make it bigger. And there's 20 this the US economy is $21 trillion, $20 trillion, don't quote me on that. And another problem you did mention is that it's $20 trillion of GDP, but this income inequality is higher than ever. And that's another problem, is that you can only do that for so long until you start causing civil unrest. And you see that in America, all these protests, talked about social issues, the Black Lives Matter protests, and some may describe them as riots. That wouldn't happen if COVID didn't strike, and then people didn't lose their jobs, and people were more frustrated. So the kettle was already at a boiling
Yeah.
point.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
those issues are all connected, and you can't keep this up. You can't, in the pandemic where people have lost their jobs, corporations have stocks have shot throughout the roof. Like Elon Musk is worth $200 billion. I'm exaggerating, and it's just what are we doing here? Have we decided as a company, or not company, as a country, that we're like a U.S. in particular, we have decided that we're going to make the world's first trillionaire instead of having hundreds of thousands of millionaires. And that's what we have decided to do. We have decided that, hey, these existing companies, especially these big tech companies, we're going to give them absolute power, absolute control, and we're going to prevent any other company from thriving. And that really sucks. I know as a business owner, not a business owner, as an aspiring business owner, that if I wanted to create a product that Google is interested in, they can, what's it called, stump, and they can either sell, stump, or destroy. They can stump me out of existence. They can
Right.
force me to sell, and I'll have no other choice. They'll just bully me out. There's endless examples of this, celebritynetworth.com. Have you noticed when you Google something, you don't visit that website anymore, and you see the net worth right in the bio, not in the bio, right in the search results. The funny story is that Google originally approached those guys to say, "Hey, you want to sell us your data and can we have access to your API?" And then the guy was like, "No, because if you put it on the search result page, I can't make money through advertisements, and whatever you're going to sell me, whatever money I'm going to get from you guys, just won't make up for the revenue loss." So Google was like, "Okay, but we're just going to just take it. We're just going to take it and just put it inside the search results." And guess what? No one goes to that website anymore. The same thing with Google Flights. It used to be a time where you would probably go to Expedia and stuff like that. And now Google is using their position in the marketplace to practice anti-competitive behavior. And I'm not anti-capitalist, but man, just let people compete, let new ideas through. It is a fact that AT&T, American, I don't know the abbreviation, I'm not going to try, but when they broke it up, because
Yep.
it was a government sponsored monopoly in the 1920s, 30s, et cetera, et cetera. When they broke it up, halfway through the 20th century, it created Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint. It allowed, Bell, the company Bell allowed, what's it called? After it's broken up, it turns out that the parts are actually greater than the sum of its whole. And what was also interesting is that after you broke them up, is the world's most popular operating system, Linux. It was an experiment with inside Bell Labs, but you couldn't actually capture the value. What will be the world's most important operating system, which went on to help build Android and things like that. That's based off of Linux. That would have never came out if that corporation wasn't broken up. So it's we have to really think, are we here to protect millionaires? because I'm not even preaching the message to the people, although I should. But are we here to like, are we here to like, keep the system going, which will in turn help the people? Or are we here to just to protect existing billionaires? Like we have to make the decision. Are we capitalists? Or are we crony capitalists? And unfortunately, well, we're seeing where this is going.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's I think it's a truism to say that competition breeds innovation, and monopoly is the death of it, because the monopoly is not any longer beholden to any sort of accountability in terms of,
Yeah.
well, competition. They don't need to make a better product because nothing competes against them.
Bingo.
Like and I do see it as this kind of thing where it's funny. Everything is you see so many patterns in nature because of course it's interconnected. It's one single system. I get going my
Yes.
like philosophical rant here about like just how it is one organism. Like the universe is actually one great process. It's only by degrees of magnification that we see it as a separate entity. And when you look at these companies again in a way that it's like they're doing, like you said it really well there when you said that like corporations are succeeding in what they're designed to do,
Yes.
and these businesses are also succeeding in what they are designed to do, which is eventually to monopolize, because they were supposed to like be the strongest tree in the forest, and that's what they did. And so you couldn't fault them for it. But just like we have these two voices in our minds, which are usually, one's the indulgent voice that says return to the equilibrium, take a break, relax, whatever you need to do, and the other says go do something useful, eat a salad, drink more water. These voices will always be in competition with each other, and I feel like businesses and our regulatory bodies, they are like one system, but that need to compete with great strength. You need them to be as strong as each other, basically, where because like that, with the point I was making about leverage, it's gone so wildly out of control in terms of like, if somebody became a monopoly before, I don't think it's like the monopolies we see now have so much more power than the monopolies that we saw previously.
1000%, right. Yeah.
So it's different in terms of scale, but what needs to be accomplished is always the same thing. You always need competition. You'll always see monopolies start to form around very, very successful companies or people or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in species groups, right? Like if you see a species that's introduced to an ecosystem, it will become dominant until it becomes self-destructive, because it's now bred and it's bred out everything else. And say, for example, it's a predator. Now it's eaten everything, and now it'll start to die. So it all operates on the same principle. But
so the problem with monopolies is that consumers often don't know what they're missing out on, and that's the terrible part of it, is that you take, for example, Microsoft. Microsoft was on the verge of being being broken up by the U.S. government in the late 90s. Like there's classic Bill Gates footage that you can watch on YouTube right now, because Microsoft was just swallowing the entire world. Like they wanted to control the entire tech stack. They controlled the most important piece of the tech stack at the time, which was the operating system. Then they got into the web browser. It's funny how having a web browser built into the operating system back then was considered anti-competitive practices, but now it's just like commonplace, like iOS and like Google. But that's a different story. And as a result, they were using their instead of selling Internet Explorer, I think in CDs where consumers had to buy it and compete with Netscape, the browser at the time, they packaged it as a way to like kill Netscape in an anti-competitive manner. And just the threat of like government regulation caused Bill Gates and like Microsoft at the time to like really ease up on the anti-competitive practices. And and many people will argue, and I would too, that this very platform YouTube, which is by extension Google, would not exist. That never would have happened, because Google sits on a different layer of the tech stack, which is within the web browser. It controls what happens inside of the web browser. And if Microsoft would have dominated that, control Internet Explorer, control Windows, they can, then put the homepage, as like, MSN search or Microsoft search, and then Google had never had a chance to compete. And the next thing you know, like certain things wouldn't existed. And it's really unfortunate, because you don't know what you're missing out on. And there's existing monopolies currently with like iOS, when it comes to Android and things like that. And
Hmm.
like, you have to ask yourself, like, since the 2000s, like you name me uh, a software company as big as Adobe that was founded on iOS. Like, it's been 10 years. Like, when Windows and Mac was introduced, Adobe was able to, like, build a giant software business. But nowadays, with these new technology companies, because they control so much of the user experience and
Hmm.
control so much of, like, all the other stuff with their policies and stuff like that, it is just preventing innovation. We just don't know what we could have if it
Yeah.
wasn't for these guys just blocking it. And it's really unfortunate. It's really
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah. I completely agree. I do at it, and I'd welcome to the conversation of it. Like, very few things do I say with certainty. But I would definitely say that they should break up the larger tech companies.
Yeah.
I think, and I'd love it'd be, not only to defend my own opinions, but to understand better if somebody's like, no, they absolutely shouldn't. I'd love to hear that as well. Like, I'd like to hear both sides of the argument. But as I've seen, that we have examples historically where it's only been to everyone's benefit, that they have. I think it would be because it's turned into a sort of like techno monarchy. Like
It
there's
is. It is.
they
We have,
where they're
yeah.
basically people. This is another thing too. It's like it's cliche to say that people are distracted by celebrity and fame and these
Yeah.
kind of things, but people, I don't think, grasp the scale of wealth and resources that they have at that level. Like, when people think wealthy, they'd be like, oh, who's super super rich? They would be able to name Bezos and Elon Musk and these other billionaires, but those wouldn't be the people they'd probably name. They'd probably say somebody like, I don't know, like Rihanna. She's probably
Yeah.
super wealthy.
Yeah.
Let's say, another huge, like, Brad Pitt. But it's
Yeah.
like these people are like just little itty bitty, teeny tiny,
Yeah.
like, no impact in terms of like the impact that sort of wealth has. Um, there's this super lefty guy, but he's fantastic. And he really is, like, the things that he says with great evidence and, case studies to support. I think his name's Robert Reich, I think, maybe.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
He's this like little tiny Democrat dude who was like
Mhm.
responsible for, like, I can't remember, like, finance. I'll see if I can get it. And basically he was just talking about another one. Yeah, I got it. I actually, or Reich, Robert Reich or Reich.
Huh?
Um, and he's talking about kind of lending itself to what we're discussing now in terms of like the power and like leverage that they have, where that lobbying exists and that state, or like call it national policy, is being now so manipulated by people who can have the laws changed to support their monopoly,
Yes.
that you really, like, I mean, it's the very definition of that now, like, all the laws in the land align to your corporation never being uprooted from power, where, like, wherever those tendrils got in is whenever lobbying became a thing that corporate interests could manipulate political choice. That didn't always exist. And again, it's one of these things people think just because it existed at one time and it existed forever has this like irrevocable, I would say, damage that's caused. And people, maybe in a sort of like glancing, like hand waving way, would say, oh yeah, of course the system's like been corrupted, that's the way it is. But it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
Like, these are all changes that have occurred over time and you'd hope could be corrected. Do I have the answers to that? No, but I think breaking up monopolies would be one of them.
Well, and it's interesting because we live in a winner take all economy. The way technology works is that I'm trying to like form my words right now. It's like it's these platforms. So there's no there's no inherent value in the code of Facebook. Like, you can write a billion lines of code and Facebook doesn't have any value, but what has value is this network effect. So it
Right.
draws like these tech companies. It's a winner take all system. Like, the system really only supports two winners. Like, generally speaking, isn't it interesting that we have Android versus iOS. You have Microsoft versus Apple again, and you have Facebook versus Twitter. And Facebook owns Instagram, so they don't count anymore. So it's it's a winner take all system because the value is in the people who uses the platform, and like these platforms has like a huge control, and it's just irresponsible just to just let these guys just self-regulate because it's incredibly irresponsible. I do sympathize with some of the Republican arguments of it. Like, one will argue that some of the European privacy laws that they passed, the GDPR, I don't exactly know the order of those letters in the acronym.
Sure.
That
Yeah.
it prevents smaller companies who don't have the budget or who don't have the expertise to navigate these laws. So actually, it creates a deeper moat for the existing companies to thrive because Facebook, they can hire a whole team of people, but maybe a new tech company may not be able to. So you would need like smart and very delicate regulation, and you might even need like dynamic laws to be changed. People say that'll create chaos, but if the system is changing so fast, then government needs to respond in that effort. Yeah, man, it's a really hard concept. Like, this is part of things I do want to talk about on the podcast that we're doing. We're going to choose a tech book one of these days, and we're going to really dive into deep in some of these issues because it is a really hard concept because you mentioned it earlier, man. It's just so many different moving parts that you can't just point out one problem and be like, that's it. You can't do it. So it's just, and politicians try to do it. They offer simple solutions to complex problems to become a populist and win people over. But it's I don't know. I just wish we just have more intelligent people, or at least people who even the political incentives to think long term. Democracy we're seeing right now is just the incentives. It's you're there to think of your reelection every 2 years, every 4 years, and how do you fix that? Because we can't keep going down this route. This is a bad idea. If we're not having politicians who are more concerned about the state of the country 10 years from now versus the state of their jobs. So
right,
it is so difficult, man.
Well,
this is a good topic.
I definitely like the way that to look on in an objective way that I still have a lot of hope. I think that one of the big things that has come along, which is it cuts both ways, but it's that people as individuals, it may seem like we're being disempowered when you see the incredible strength that these whether it's these corporations or whatever else that's influencing in your life, but we humans have the potential to have far, far more individual agency and reach than they ever did. Yes. For example, you have creatives who could have far more influence than any sort of politician, which isn't totally new, but the number of people that are getting more and more access to that, again, sort of maybe the general standard of living rising up, much as we have problems of massive problems of income equality, we also have more. I mean, here's a simple statistic, and this we can then thread out some of the why this isn't just universally hopeful. But if you look at the number of channels on YouTube that used to number in the millions, and this is just every man, every woman who's done some creative project, it was tiny. It was this little tiny group, and with every single year, I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's exponentially grown, but it is growing at an incredible rate and giving agency to so many people who never did before. And I think that's really incredible, just that more often the average person is now able to elevate themselves. Now, the counter argument,
competition, that's a good thing.
Yeah, incredible competition. The counter argument, of course, is that those many more people that now have a platform are not always intelligent. You're definitely empowering a lot of people, but do you want to be empowering all of these people? Probably not. But I would rather that more people were empowered than disempowered. I think that that's really important, because I think historically there's been so many incredible people that just were flushed down the cracks that like somebody, had they had a chance to show their quality, then you would have been like, wow, like how many more artists are discovered now, much as people might be like, oh, everything's oversaturated. Yeah, it's oversaturated. No, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think it's oversaturated. I think it's just that more people get to have a voice now.
But can I push back just a little
Yeah,
bit?
yeah.
Just a little bit,
I'd welcome it.
because like so you mentioned earlier that this feels like a monarchy, like these tech companies, and like you're right, like, but the problem is that you have millions of people on YouTube right now, and the vast majority of creators aren't getting paid for their work. Isn't that a little bit weird that you're adding so much value to a platform collectively, but the wealth only really funnels like the top 10% of creators? Airbnb did something interesting. Airbnb is also a platform just like YouTube. It's a platform in a different vein. Airbnb recently IPO'd, and I believe I was reading somewhere that they were offering some of their individual top hosts like opportunities to buy into the stock, and like buy the stock before IPOs, and you can buy it at the actual fixed price of $40-$60, and then like recently earlier this week Airbnb IPO'd at 100 and $40 or $120, somewhere around that range. And I feel like some of these
IPO
companies,
is
Spotify, huh?
what? IPO, can you define that for me?
Oh, IPO is the initial public offering. So when companies are private and they're on the verge of going public onto the public stock exchange, and
Right.
there's various different stock exchanges across the world, they have a set price, and that set price is determined by a bank. And if you own shares in that company, at that point, you can probably sell your shares into the public offering because it was a
Okay.
private company. You have privatized shares, and now the average investor is able to purchase shares of that said company, and it's just a marketplace at that. It's on the marketplace at that point. It's just the
Okay.
initial public offering.
So it's like
So
how much the shares cost when they're
yeah,
first available.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They set a price, and then the market usually in Airbnb's case, like I think they had like a price set at $60, and when it actually like IPO'd, it was like 100 and like $40. So if you bought it before the IPO, man, you tripled your money like overnight. But my thing is that, and this is why I'm like, it gotta be a better way, because if we allow this to keep going, what's happening with YouTube, what's happening is Facebook, is that creators aren't being paid. Like there's people who are people who are creating value into like the cultural zeitgeist, who just aren't seeing money. Like Fortnite was a perfect example. A couple years ago, a rapper, Black Boy JB, had that classic dance and stuff like that. Fortnite took it and put it inside their video game as a DLC, and then they made millions of dollars while paying the original creator. That's messed up, man. Like it's kind of messed up, and you're seeing this exploitation happen. And I think this is antithesis of capitalism. You've seen this exploitation where you have all these creators aren't being paid, and then you're told that you have to make money through other means like merchandising, or you have to make money through in shows and in-person things. And part of me thinks, because Airbnb IPO'd and offered some of their hosts, some of the people who put properties on their platform, stock, I kind of, maybe this is a stretch. I kind of feel like maybe Google, YouTube should be offering their top creators with over 1,000 subscribers some stock into the company, because these people aren't being paid. Like what you do is a real job. You bring real value, and they would say, well, you just make up a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of our overall value. But somehow they retain the value of that. They make billions of dollars. You guys make nothing, largely speaking. And then like only the top tier get like these huge deals. And that's weird. That is a really weird system that we're just like kind of just accepted, because it was done like this in 2004, and now it's going to stay like this in 2020. Like it's a weird idea when you think about it.
No, I completely agree that there's definitely everything. I think everything is always an imperfect system. It can be better and worse. I do know, like, one statistic I would throw out immediately is that YouTube is not profitable. It loses money to operate, much
Fair
as
enough.
they're not paying, they're not paying out an ad revenue like what could arguably make sense for creators. So hard to justify at a glance saying that more money should be distributed through ad revenue to a system that is not able to pay for itself. But when YouTube belongs to the mothership, which is, I think at a glance we would see that Google was quite profitable, so maybe YouTube itself is not profitable, but they as a corporation are.
But that's the trickery, because Amazon's technically not profitable, and somehow Jeff Bezos is worth $200 billion after divorce.
And
Like,
this is the thing, right? Where it's also something where you said it's kind of anti-capitalist. I think that this is another thing where perhaps where I'd make the counter argument to not just defend Google, but if you incentivized creators more, brought them into the fold more in terms of how they could progress, aside from sending them like a shiny subscriber button at whichever, ascension level that they've reached, perhaps you would see the platform perform even better. So it would actually be in their interest to support the creators on the platform more. So totally, there's room there to see how it could be better made to support the creators on it.
If YouTube had a real competitor, and they found a way to make it profitable by, thinking of a new innovative business idea, that's just because it's the only thing. So it's we just accept that maybe streaming platforms just aren't profitable. Is it, or is it just because this is the only one they don't make it profitable for whatever reason they chose to do it? Because if there was a competing force, I'm pretty sure they would figure out a way. There's a great book by Clay Christensen. I think he died recently, but he's a Harvard professor. It's called The Innovator's Dilemma, and one of the aspects of Innovator's Dilemma that talks about is that,
how is it said?
Innovator's Dilemma. I roll my words sometimes, so
it's not good.
It's the innovator's dilemma.
Okay.
And one of the key aspects that they highlight in the innovator's dilemma is that that we often think that technological innovation is the end all be all. That's what brings about change and progress, when really a lot of the time it's actually business model innovation that actually brings about the changes. I mean, if you think about it, like Netflix, before Netflix became a streaming company, they didn't have any new technology. They just distributed DVDs differently than Blockbuster. And it revolutionized the world and how we consume media. Yeah. And you see that time and time again. Apple, up until 2016, was distributing MP3s, and their business model was like an a la carte basis. You buy per song. And then Spotify was like, we're going to just give you everything all at once. Yes. Nothing changed except the business model. So, there's some things just aren't a tech problem. Some things are just I think if Google had competition to actually innovate on their business model, then maybe they might find a way. They'll find a way. Because come on, man. How is a Netflix show that get 1 million views somehow worth more than a YouTube video that gets 1 million views? How come an eyeball on CNBC that gets 500,000 views is worth more than the eyeball on YouTube? They're all eyeballs. This doesn't make any sense, but we accept it. It's really weird.
Yeah. I mean, my brother has always said that, where he's like, and not in any sort of malicious way or that he's thought I was stupid. He's just like, I cannot believe the amount of content and the quality of content that you could create on that platform and how little you get for it. He's like, it's like shocking to me. He's like, he's pretty entrepreneurial and just interested in that kind of stuff. In a way that isn't me trying to I guess faced with that, I not just I basically have a quote prepared for anything that I need to do to
Go ahead.
It's what can't be changed must be endured. So for the time being, it's also been, what is it? Necessity is the mother of innovation. I'll just speak in quotes now for the rest of it. But it's been really useful for someone like me who's just, my growth is almost it's amazing how slowly I've grown. Not actually, I should be less surprised by things. I have not grown so fast. I haven't perhaps done the things that would allow me to grow quicker. But what that's meant is that I've definitely kept an edge. I've never been complacent in whatever vision or way that I should. Perhaps I would not have progressed to where I am in terms of what it is that I want to create had I not been so suppressed in my overall traditional success. But that's on a personal level, where I don't think that that's any solution, because it's kind of that's just telling any new creator, it's you just got to climb the mountain, and if you fail to be superhuman, well, then that's the only way that people succeed, which
Yeah.
is not, it's the way that I think you have to approach it personally, but I
Yeah.
don't think speaks to the way that the greater system should be run. But that's
Yeah.
like, that's my sort of like short-term solution is like, well, if you're not going to change it, better figure out what it is that's going to make you sustainable.
Yeah.
But then what that means is you're losing a lot of great creators. You're putting your like foot on the throat of many people who the world would benefit from seeing whatever it is that they're putting out there as content. Like, I mean, I seem to always catch channels like as they're about to explode, or maybe that's only because I'm catching them as they are exploding, but then I think
Yeah.
it's like me finding them. But I do see, and this always like reaffirms my confidence and like drive to it, that good quality content does well. Not
True.
always, but it does. This idea that the only way you get clicks is with clickbaity themes and with content that's like bite-sized attention span. It's just not true. I've seen so many channels that with good content succeed in the system, and maybe it's not as many as should, but it's kind of like
Yeah.
my rallying cry whenever I
Well,
feel.
I'm hoping as a brand new content creator myself, I'm only one episode in of an untitled podcast, that it is good content will eventually rise to the fold. Because one of the things that I was personally thinking about is that I mean, everyone has different reasons. Like, there's so much content, there's so much information out here that I feel like it's almost too much. That for a long time, like I wanted to do a podcast or I wanted to do something on YouTube, but it can't be a vanity project. I can't do it for my ego. Like, if people choose to do it, that's their own personal business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, it's a lot of great things driven by ego, but at least for me, I was like, I need to find a way to add value to people's life, and that's what this book club thing was about. Like, we're gonna read one book a month because I read very slowly, and we're gonna have a deep, in-depth discussion about it, and it's gonna you like that. It's gonna start with the book, but then it's gonna maybe change it to a broader discussion about this overall topic, and like this way we can like talk about all of these interesting things. We have this premise of like, hey, this is what we're talking about, but this book has, if you want to learn more, read the book, or we might leave other links inside the show notes and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that good content eventually rise. At least for me, like 2 years from now, I hope I don't measure success by the numbers, and I hope I measure success by how much value that I add into people who choose to listen to me. Because the thing I'm doing is already niche, so I'm aware I'm not going to be like a massive YouTuber, but I'm just hoping I get like a couple of dozen, 100 views. Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, niche is actually, it works for you.
Yeah.
I think that niche and specialization is what usually thrives. It's people who can't define themselves clearly that have a lot of trouble, which is, I think, one of the things that I've struggled with is because I've changed so much, because like every video is different. Everything is me trying out like some new thing. People are like, what the hell is this? Like, and because there's no consistency, that's not how people start to watch you, unless you get like a very kind of like a diehard fan base, which I seem to have, because they're like, I'll just stick with this no matter what he does next, because it seems to be pretty random.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you are focusing on these books, and your podcast has a flavor and it's distinct, that will matter and it will help you. Yeah. Like, that's one of the reasons I think my podcast will grow very, very, very slowly, is because it has no flavor. It's like it's like one day it's talking about like Rome, then the next day it's talking about Facebook. Then it's like, which I'm fine with, because I feel like maybe I'll create the mega niche where it's like you just do everything. It's the variety.
These podcasts is like that, like stuff about stuff you should know is a podcast that talks about how sushi works. So like how government practices work. It just bounces around episode by episode. So there's certainly a possibility in there. And I like your content. Like I mean, I'm clearly an introspective guy, so I like when someone else is also introspective, because it gets me thinking. So I watch some of your videos, I'm just like, this is really cool. So like, but it is a balance. Like, I mean, I know that just being a long-term fan is, you have like this introspection that it seems pretty new to me. But like, originally you were like this English teacher guy, and you still are that. So you kind of like bounce around in between it. And I don't know what's the right answer. I'm sure you're going to figure that out, but like, I like it. I think it's dope.
Oh yeah, and I feel actually probably now it's only taken 8 years to get here, but because I will move from teaching, it will follow more directed focus.
Well, you're leaving
Because
teaching?
yeah, as of April.
Really? I mean, I don't watch all your videos. So what are you doing?
Yeah, that's fine. Um, where like to comment, like some of it, a lot of the way that I've evolved is that it's random because I've learned something new. But
Hmm.
another big reason was time. Like if you don't have the time to have a more crystallized voice, you're like, all right, this weekend I got like 6 hours. That means I can get to a shrine and I can make a video like this. Oh, this weekend I have way more time, so I'll do a neighborhood tour. Like, so there's
Huh.
like where you can definitely bring a more like a focused vision with more time, which I will have. The one question I had for you though, before I like say what I'll do for April, is your podcast, because you're talking about YouTube, but is a podcast
Yeah.
you'll be available on like Spotify and iTunes though, right?
Eventually, we're building the ship as we flying, and we literally, this podcast is a premature baby. So, yeah,
It's a
eventually it
preemie.
is that.
Okay.
It's certainly a preemie. So, the people who are listening, please bear with us because we're shaping it, but we want to put out content.
Okay.
So, it's going to be on there. Like, I have every intent to get that RSS feed into these different, like, podcast hosts, and like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna figure out a way to do it. I'm a tech guy, so I figure it out.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I can always hit you up. I'm pretty sure you can give me advice
Yeah,
too. Like,
it'll
yeah.
you
So
do it in a, you do it in an afternoon. You do it in
yeah,
like 4 hours. It's basically you find your hosting site.
yeah.
I'd recommend Libsyn because that's what I use. Once you have
Okay.
your hosting site, that's where you're going to upload all of the podcast audio to. They give you the RSS feed to
Yeah,
register with iTunes and Spotify. Takes about 20 minutes.
yeah.
And especially for long format, it's just so good because that's, I think more where podcast listeners go to
Yeah.
is on those platforms.
But we're also trying to shape the show as well. So,
Mhm.
the things that we talk about is so in depth and our podcast is so long that we're fully aware that majority of people aren't going to listen to the full thing.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why, like, the YouTube will be there as the marketing. That's why we decided to publish on YouTube first. And people, if you follow me on Instagram, you see that I publish clips because,
Okay.
that's the thing that we're trying to figure out right now. Like, how do we produce a show that we can break into clips that can live on their own and market the whole content for us.
Hmm.
So we're already thinking about that. And like, we're doing these episodes once a month. So it's going to be a slow growth. Like we're doing this slowly. I want to do it twice a month. And, the ultimate end goal is to do it once a week, but we're not quite there yet. We're like, we're already having these discussions like, okay, maybe we can do like a big book review every month. And then we can like, just have like a mini talk every 2 weeks, or maybe we can talk about like a very interesting article that we read and maybe the Atlantic or like the New York Times to have a 45-minute podcast about that, or 20-minute podcast. Like we're thinking about it, but we haven't made these decisions. It's very much so in the initial phase. This is a premature baby.
Yeah,
So
and that's fine. I mean, it's you know, progress. That's all it
yeah,
is. And I mean, clearly, like with everything that you've accomplished in a short time, I don't doubt for your guys making it all come about in
appreciate
the
it.
end. So that's no problem. But to answer your question, it's to do with wowed you only in Japan, that hosting position.
Yeah,
So because I got that hosting position, I'll be moving to Kyoto, and I'll be working full time to be the host for their channel. But full time is basically, I'll be able to crank out some high quality videos for them. Uh,
man, I am so impressed. This is all new to me. Like I see it pass you on Instagram, but
oh,
like
okay.
when
Yeah.
you hop in, like Instagram algorithm, sometimes I see your stuff, sometimes I
That's true.
don't.
Yeah.
And then when you hop in, like I remember you talk about on Instagram, like yo, vote for me, and I'm just like, what is going on?
What's going on? Yes.
like,
Yeah.
so you're gonna be working on another YouTube channel, like you're gonna be like the main guy.
There's two hosts. It's myself
Yeah,
and this other girl. Her name's Ellie. We're going to be two hosts. And that is now given me enough float to be able to, I'll create for them, but there's no way around. I'm going to make my own schedule. So
yeah,
it's basically going to be split between making for them, but making for my own channel as well. So I'll finally nearly it's full-time creative, but
yeah.
not 100% full-time on my personal work. It'll
Yeah.
be also on this, but they're so interconnected that to be
Yeah.
the face on some other channel,
It just helps you.
it just helps, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like it was like I say, only took 8 years to get to this next stepping stone, but it is the one that's gonna, not be me like, I got to do a podcast this weekend with Terrance, and maybe then on like Saturday I'll have a little bit of time to work on the other social media at blah blah blah. So it'll be a big liberating force, we'll say.
That's dope. I'm really glad that you won. Like I'm Team Dave Trippin, man. I'm a Patreon like subscriber. People use this Patreon. Well, people who listen to this podcast, they hear it on Patreon first too. So
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
yeah,
That's really dope, man. Like you came here. I know a little bit about you. It's kind of interesting. I mean, it must be interesting when you talk to fans. Like people know so much about you, but you know nothing about me. Like, well, you follow me, so you know a
yeah,
bit about me. But
yeah.
that's a interesting relationship that you have with people as a YouTuber. But like, congratulations nonetheless, man, because like you came here, you work for Interact, and like you are the living example of like coming here as a stepping stone, and like coming here and like finding the dream and finding the path and like sticking to it.
Yes, until I wake up and it's all just been just a dream. No, and it's all incremental, right? Because now even looking at this, yeah, but I mean I could easily screw it up. I could get there. I mean, this is I think a big mistake. Like I say this as a cautionary tale to myself. It would be very easy to think like their channel, it's big. It's a big mega channel. It's 1.4 million subscribers that's on that channel.
Damn.
But that doesn't mean you get views. That would be the biggest mistake in the world.
Really?
So, well, yeah, I mean, we did videos for them. One of my videos got 22,000 views. It's fine. But it's not 1.4 million subscribers engaged with what you make. Fine. Okay. So you got to go in there and light the fire again. And the only way that happens is if the quality of what you're putting there is good. So it's like, it's a very like just as driven, just as focused. It could all, evaporate at a moment's notice if I'm not careful. But
so forgive the dog screaming in the background if you can hear that. That's I have no clue what's going on outside. If y'all can hear that, it's weird. But why so long? Are you trying to honor your existing contract with the school and then move into this position? Because that's almost like 5 months from now.
Oh well, I mean I'm counting this down.
Yeah.
It's not, it's actually, well, the way that I look at this, December's almost over. The school basically goes January, February, and then they finish in like February 24th is like the last day of classes before they start prepping. I have saved all my paid vacation. Yeah. So I'm basically going to take off a large portion of March. But it is to, run out the contract and, do well by them and just like save a few extra dollars because whenever you move in Japan, it's really expensive. So
yes.
Right. Yeah. Like with key money and initial whatever costs. So it makes a kind of practical sense to just run this out. And yeah, I think it'll best line me up for what's to come next. So
you're gonna miss it, right? Like I mean, English teaching wasn't right for me, but man, I miss those kids. I do miss it. You're gonna miss it, right?
Yeah, inevitably. There's lots of kids that I like. That's kind of a backhanded compliment.
I think it's a lot of them.
Yeah, there was, and I should say there is, and you're absolutely right. So that's another part of it too, where I'm like, we passed but once this way, and so I'm trying to not rush actually even to the end of this. I'm like, man, what could be sweeter than before I fucked it up? So, I'm trying to like, hey, like, I mean, this is a cool time. Like when people ask, I get to say to them, yeah, I got this great prospect, like as I joked before I burned it to the ground. Like, it's like the same excitement I had before I came to Japan, because it was like, wow, you're going off to this new adventure, and that's brave and new. So like, I am
do your kids watch your YouTube videos? Does that happen? Like, has your kids seen your YouTube channel?
Yes, they did, which is another reason why I've been so happy over the years not to create anything that I would like horribly regret any student
Yeah.
seeing.
Yeah.
But they do, and kind of like comically, I turn it into a joke. I don't dwell on it. The worst thing is
Yeah.
to stare into the abyss. But like when the kids will be like, I'll just hear a kid say something. He'll be like, Dave Trippin. And I'll be like, I don't know who that is. And I have this like banter back and forth, and I've gone around.
Alter ego.
They have laptops at the school, and I've gone around and caught kids with my channel up
Yeah.
on there, and I'm like, that's a great channel.
That's
Just
sweet. That's really awesome.
have fun with that. But then
I'm sure you
also,
made a great impression on them. Yeah.
I hope they'd be
Yeah.
like, Dave, your content sucks. Maybe that's what they're getting from it. You got to get your
You
shit
know,
together.
like, I mean, I respect it because when I left English, I left in the middle of the year. Like I said, I moved to Tokyo in January, so I didn't fulfill the contract. So I felt like I was kind of like abandoning these kids. And what I ended up doing was, at least in my middle school, and I went back in March to go see them graduate because I felt like it was an unfulfilled chapter. So I flew back to
Okay.
coach you to go see those kids graduate. I felt bad. So it's kind of cool that you're riding with them to like near the end, like to the practical end. So like
Yeah.
that's what's up.
Oh, it's yeah, and I mean also the experience at this school. It's the only time where I mean, for whatever it's worth, I'm a licensed teacher. I'm only a licensed teacher in Ibaraki, but it meant that I got to teach as a teacher, designing everything, the only guy in the class. That's also unique. Never going to have that again. Don't want it anymore. But I mean, I'm never going to have that again. So, yeah. But rounding all of this off, just the hours, man. The hours at this school, like these private schools, like I'll be relieved to have concluded this duty.
I heard it's a grind. I really heard it's a real grind. Like you work Saturdays, right? Like
Yeah.
don't isn't that what they do?
Yep.
Man, man, that's tough. That's tough. I was a vacation days as an English teacher at a like in a full-time position.
You see, this is a funny thing where I want to give them the credit that's due, like regularly. And this is like I went for high school because I was playing sports. I managed to get in on a scholarship to this boarding school. And at that school, because you're going on Saturdays, when it comes to your winter and summer breaks, they give you more time off.
Yeah.
And they did that at this school, but because of the pandemic, they haven't. So I've managed to come to the school at the time where they removed any sort of additional benefit you would have had for working so much longer, which I'm like, fuck it, whatever.
Okay.
So it's
Man.
it's been like, so I actually have kind of a hilarious, I think, what did I get? I got like 10 paid holidays, which is,
Same. Yeah, that's Japan, man. Like yeah, I'm working all throughout the year.
so yeah, it is, it is what it is. And I'll be relieved to, like I say, to get to the other side of it, because it's another thing too. I mean, I'm sure, like, I'm certain, like you directed yourself into something that you really enjoyed. You talked
Bingo.
about flow states where maybe occasionally I do get that from teaching, where I'm like, this is pretty cool. And this class that I'm with, they're great. And they're like, oh, Mr. Jameson, please tell us more. Yeah, it's great. And that's cool. But that, as compared to doing this and creating movies and documentaries, I
Yeah.
will far more regularly be in a flow state doing that.
Yeah.
So,
And that's where you're gonna grow.
and
Like that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to. I get up and I'm like, oh, I do the thing I love. What do I do tomorrow? Oh, the thing I love. And then you do that, like, and the way that, if you're into it, you also don't mind spending more time. So
Bingo.
like the fact, like, when I put in a 13-hour day here, I'm like, all right, I got to do whatever I got to do. But I could put in a 13-hour day. I would be super tired at the end of it, like filming
Yeah.
and editing. But I'd be like,
Yeah.
that was just sweet. Let's do it again as soon as I can. Like,
Don't burn yourself out because like I do that too, but then I overdo it. I work on weekends. Like man, like even like I'm always programming or I'm always doing something like that's like
right.
tech related, and it's just that sometimes I feel like, okay, I need a real break. Like you need to like, take this weekend off.
No, and it's true. It's like, and it's only in your interest. Like it's,
Yeah.
I not always, but I definitely, yeah, I overshoot sometimes where I'm like, I get on the high where I'm like, yeah, just keep it going, keep it going. But then what that does is you either break down or you get sick, and then it's like getting injured at the gym because you went too hard. Now you're taking a break, and if you had just gone a little slower, you would have incrementally grown slower, but
It's a
more
marathon,
quickly.
not a sprint.
Yeah,
So like help me understand this. Is like you're is based in Kyoto, but I'm guessing you're doing things for all over Japan, right?
yeah, yeah. It would be
Yeah.
like I'll be based out of Kyoto. That'll kind of be like the center of operations, but I could go on a trip here and do something. There'll probably be sponsorships that I would do in Tokyo, so I'll go there for a weekend. I'm next to Osaka, which is I'm so
Yes.
stoked to cover Osaka, the bohemian
Yeah.
center of Japan, like all the artists and musicians and things that can happen there. So yeah, there'll certainly be some exploration, but I would love to do that. So that's
Man,
cool.
I'm gonna get this channel information from you because I want to check this out. Like, man, I haven't followed this the story arc of Dave tripping. Like, so this is all new to me.
Yeah, yeah, it's just an incredible opportunity to do what I want to do. So
That's dope.
yeah,
That's really dope, man. That's really good. That's really cool.
I appreciate it. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
man. This has been like three
Yeah,
3 hours. Is this how long your podcasts usually are?
no, not even remotely. This is yeah, this was the megabucks.
This is the first time we ever actually talked too. So this has been quite fun.
Yeah, we didn't just break the ice, we broke the ocean. That's pretty good.
What did we talked about like capitalism. We talked about just our personal anecdotes and to like your experiences. Like I'm super interested how you're gonna title this podcast. Do you do episode titles? Like
Oh yeah, I've already in my head. I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. I'm not sure how to encapsulate what we'll have going on here, but
yeah.
where there's a will, there's a way. I'll do your method of 100 different titles, and we'll see which one of them stands out.
Yo, good luck, man.
The
Well, this has
clearest.
been fun. This has been like we probably gonna wrap up soon. So like,
Yeah,
hey, this has been like a real honor. Thank you for reaching out. I'm such a new creator, man. Like I feel like I'm super appreciative of this opportunity to come on here to talk to you because like I said, man, I've been watching you since I was like just a 20-something-year-old kid in Cleveland, Ohio, man. So like you helped me get here in a way. And like it's to me it kind of feels like full circle that we are actually talking like 4 years later. So it's quite interesting because I was just a commenter on YouTube and now I'm having a conversation. So that's dope.
yeah, man. Well, I appreciate your time coming on. You got like a pretty fascinating story, which will only grow as it would seem at like a hyper rate. Don't succeed too quickly, so I can keep some of my shine. Yeah.
Man, I'll be lucky if I get half of your success, man, because I'm not even looking for anything big. I'm just looking for just a small community.
You'll do great, and we'll definitely be in touch with the details of like you should within this weekend be on the other like streaming services for your podcast. But
Yeah.
thanks everybody for listening. Thanks again to Terrance for coming on. If you guys do consider supporting me on Patreon, it means a lot to me. It means the world. Really appreciate it. Makes the world go around here. Catch you guys in the next one. Please do check out, I'm going to put down in the description below, but I know for people who may be listening to this on Spotify or iTunes that you won't have that information unless you go to YouTube. Please do check out Terrance's Instagram. It's TERRANCEE95.
Nice.
And check out his pod. It's going to be fascinating with the rain books, I'm sure.